We seek the truth.
Would you be handing your resignation to the Minister of Culture tomorrow, sir?
No, I will not.
The leader of the opposition, you have accused your government, sir, of using the Grenada Development Bank to facilitate the financing of personal loans for certain government ministers.
The other side is in no position to talk about those issues, and I will leave it there.
We discover new perspectives.
You know his leadership style, and so many are saying, why are you coming now to talk about those issues?
Now is the time to speak. You have the right to decide who will take over.
And you met with Dr. Mitchell, and perhaps you might want to confirm what that meeting was about in your response. But
Dr. Mitchell, like myself, are Grenadians.
We ask the right questions.
why was there no report on the work done of the commission? And how is this new committee different from the commission that was initially established back in 2022? So who are these elements that are using you?
I'm disappointed in my political leader.
And why is that animating those political conversations now?
It's a very interesting question.
The Bubb Report with Dr. Kellon Bubb. Thought-provoking, truthful, unbiased, and truly original reporting.
Tell us, a commissioner of police, tell a politician, back off. You have no knowledge of the law. You have no knowledge of law enforcement. You cannot force my officers to do the wrong thing.
But that is somebody's son. That is somebody's child. That is part of a family. And I think that is the part that they are missing out.
Because E and F are apt to be used oppressively.
It's like because we don't see disabled people as sexual beings, which is ridiculous.
You mean they don't want to listen to your version of science? They have their own science. You have your science.
We need to do is teach people to think and not what to think.
Today, it's too bad that everybody do what they want.
If I could forgive Bernard Ford, then I could forgive Bob Morris too. And today, on this day, I no more have anything in my heart for what he did.
The education system has to be very fluid and dynamic because we're living in very different and changing times.
Treating all your citizens equally, all your citizens fairly, recognizing each group, not discriminating against one or the other.
Hello, everyone, and we welcome you to yet another edition of the Bubb Report. And of course, if it's Sunday, it is the Bubb Report, and the Bubb Report is on. Now, as we welcome you into the room, please do us a favor by liking and sharing this week's live stream. We also want to take this opportunity to inform the national community in Grenada of the Bubb Report's inaugural Future Fords Summit in honor of Leslie Pear, Lou Smith, and George Grant. The core idea behind this summit is to bring together global leaders, thinkers, and experts from various disciplines to engage in deep discussions about the most pressing societal and global issues. Now, this event will serve as a platform for exploring complex ideas, fostering understanding, and sparking innovative solutions to challenges facing Grenada and the Caribbean. Now, the event will be held at the Grenada Trade Center Annex, kicking off at 6 p.m. with a reception, followed by a public lecture at 7 p.m., with some items of entertainment sprinkled in between. Our inaugural guest speaker will be Dr. Dinikus Jules, who is the Director General of the OECS and a former Grenadian education minister who was instrumental in establishing the Revolutionary Era Center for Popular Education. And now for this week's editorial. Now, yesterday was World Press Freedom Day. The Bubb Report is therefore determined to highlight the dangers faced by reporters and journalists working in some of the world's most perilous places and to tell their stories. Now, the 2025 Reporters Without Borders Press Freedom Index and report published yesterday describe a marked deterioration of press freedom around the world, with journalists and media facing difficult economic conditions, and journalists in the US operating in an increasingly hostile environment. Now, for the first time, Reporters Without Borders has classified the state of press freedom globally as in a difficult situation, noting that following several years of decline, the conditions for journalism are now rated poor in half of the world's countries. Now, RSF also notes in its report that while physical attacks against journalists are the most visible violations of press freedom, economic pressure such as ownership concentration, pressure from advertisers or financial backers, as well as restricted public financing, are also major issues, and they tend to be more insidious. Now, in 2024, more journalists were killed than in any other year since the Committee to Protect Journalists began collecting data more than 3 decades ago. At least 124 journalists and media workers were killed last year. Nearly 2/3 of them, Palestinians, killed by the American-funded Israeli government, right-wing government, and the Israeli Defense Force. Now, the death tolls in Mexico, Pakistan, India, and Iraq also reinforces the extreme dangers that journalists face in these nations, which have experienced repeated killings over multiple decades, despite numerous efforts in some of these countries, including at the national level, to address these concerns. Now, the deadliest nations for journalists share a common playbook to help them dodge responsibility and deny justice for killed journalists. Some stifle investigations of incidents, shift blame to the journalists as victims themselves, and most simply ignore their duty to hold the killers to account. Now, at a time when press freedom is facing this barrage of attacks on many fronts, it has never been more important for journalists to be able to work freely and safely, and for the protections they are granted under international human rights laws to be respected and defended. Viewers and listeners, this is the Bubb Report. We will be right back for the first segment of our program. Now, as we go to break, please remember to like and share this week's live stream. Stand by.
Don't go there.
You are a technocrat. I mean, you can speak to whether or not it was appropriate or inappropriate for that to occur. Would you have done that as a permanent secretary?
Politicians get the information from wherever source that they can.
That's going to be the extent of your answer.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
There's a lot of noise around the data protection bill that, in my respectful view, is not warranted.
I was one of those making noise, and it's simply because I was concerned about that specific section 33.
Don't go there.
Are you going to be offering yourself up as political leader of the party?
I see you've called me here for much more than diplomatic passports. I don't mind that.
Don't go there.
What is the relationship like between you and your leader, Dr. Mitchell, your boss, Dr. Mitchell?
I'm not sure how to explain how to answer this question at this time. I prefer not to answer.
Don't go there.
They said that you approached the bank for the loan before the election and that it only materialized after the election. There are also conflicting reports around the quantity of monies that were received. What is the reality here?
People try to extort the truth and to make all kinds of things about it. I just stay quiet. So if you notice, I was really and truly quiet about the whole matter.
Well, except with not with the New Today newspaper. The New Today newspaper reported on this, so I'm not sure you were quiet on this. Go ahead, Honorable. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to answer your question, right?
Don't go there.
I think we just spoke at length about the regularization framework. So
yes, we did. But let us talk. Let us talk, Prime Minister. Let us talk about the workers who are dismissed.
The Bubb Report. We go there.
And folks, welcome back to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. Now, Caribbean Americans, of course, have played a historic role in shaping the ideals and values of the United States. Titans such as James Johnson, W.E.B. Du Bois, C.L.R. James, Malcolm X, Stokely Carmichael, Maya Angelou, Audre Lorde, Grenadian Audre Lorde, Shirley Chisholm, Harry Belafonte, Marcus Garvey, of course, to name a few, all had Caribbean roots and were all progenitors of civil rights and advancing the cause of people of African descent in colonized and imperial spaces such as the United States. Now, one such activist with deep Grenadian roots is Malcolm X, whose mother, Louise Langdon-Little, hails from the village of Ladigue in St. Andrew. Now, for the first segment of our program, we are joined by a veteran American civil rights and political activist who will tell us about the Institute of the Black Worlds of the 21st Century's upcoming pilgrimage to Grenada to honor the life and legacy of Louise Langdon-Little. Now, the week-long series of activities will kick off with a reception on Wednesday, the 14th of May, 2025, and end with a commemorative ceremony in the village of Ladigue. Of course, the village of Ladigue is the birthplace of the late, great Louise Langdon-Little. And that event will be held on Saturday, May 17th, 2025. And that would also be bookended by a farewell to Grenada on the 18th of May. Now, we're happy to welcome Dr. Ron Daniels to the Bubb Report to speak with us this week. Dr. Daniels, welcome to the Bubb Report, sir.
It is my pleasure to be with you, my brother, and I'm so proud of you. I'm looking at you and I say, when I grow up, I want to be just like Professor Kellenberg, brother. You are really rocking it. You're taking in the spirit of the revolution, and I mean that sincerely. Seeing you carry on to be sort of a son of the revolution and bringing it back to life and living up to its creed and its code and whatever, and extending it throughout the world. I am so proud of you. And by the way, we appreciate you coming to the State of the Black World Conference.
Yes,
in Baltimore.
I really enjoyed that conference. I learned so much from that event in Baltimore.
Right, and it's good to be connected with you and to have a conversation with the people of Grenada and beyond with the spectacular Bubb Report in terms of the work that we're attempting to do.
Yes. So, Dr. Daniels, for those who don't know you, we may have some young people watching and they're wondering, who is Dr. Ron Daniels and why is he connected to Grenada? So just for a reintroduction to those who may not know who Dr. Daniels is.
Well, Dr. Ron Daniels is a veteran social and political activist who have been at this journey for a long time. And I'm a Pan-Africanist who has worked for many years to spread what I would call progressive Pan-Africanism, which is a distinction which we can discuss later. But through my work in 1971, actually made my very first trip to Africa as a growing young activist and Pan-Africanist, filling my vinegar, by the way, as a Pan-Africanist. You know, we knew everything and all the answers. But out of that came a challenge from the Secretary General of the Organization of American States to put some muscle behind our words. He basically sat back and said, we know a lot about this Pan-Africanism stuff. We know about Nkrumah. We know about, but what are you folks doing in the United States of America to help liberate Africa? And we said, duh. So out of that conversation, as well as some other conversations we had, we created the first African Liberation Day in 1972. And in 1972, it was about really the final nations that had not been liberated, whether it was Zimbabwe, South Africa, Namibia, Angola. And we put 35,000 people in the streets of Washington, D.C. in 1972 on the very first African Liberation Day. But guess who joined in that commemoration? It was none other than the New Jewel movement under the leadership of Maurice Bishop in Grenada. And so that began a kind of relationship with the New Jewel movement and a relationship with Maurice Bishop, particularly as the People's Revolutionary Government came to power. And it was Decima Williams who then created something called the Grenada U.S. Friendship Society. And back in those days, Barbara Lee was not the Congresswoman Barbara Lee. She was on the staff of the Honorable Ronald V. Dellums, one of the most progressive elected officials we had here in Black America. We took our first journey back in the day to celebrate the beginning of the People's Revolutionary Government And of course, the most important thing to say about that, it was truly a very, very powerful people-based experiment. And let me just say that a part of that was many of us who were activists and organizers of the time would gather after the formal activities concluded, whether it was Rosie Douglas coming from over in Rosie Douglas, or whether it was Tim Hector coming, George Weeks from Trinidad. We would all gather to talk about what was our obligation and what would our mission be. How would we be fighting really to change the world? And the point to be recognized is Grenada was at the very center, the very forefront of a global movement, not only to transform the lives of Grenadians, but to be an example for the world. And so that really is the context for this conversation today, because I love Grenada and all of that. And we know that Malcolm's mother was born there and all that. But the context is the rise under the leadership of Deacon Mitchell of the possibilities of Grenada rising again in that same way. That is why we're connecting with Grenada, because as a small Pan-Africanist organization, we don't have a lot of resources. So what we do is we try to utilize those resources to promote progressive leadership, and we see that emerging potentially in the new prime minister in Grenada.
Now, in my conversation, I had a conversation last year, incidentally, in the month of May with a former congresswoman. I believe she's a former congresswoman now.
Oh, yeah. She's running for mayor of the city of Oakland.
She's running for mayor for the city of Oakland now, Barbara Lee. And Barbara Lee really articulated the through line between the Grenada Revolution and the Black Power movement in the United States, the Black Panther movement. And she articulated that through line so effectively. But one of the anecdotes that she referenced was how many African Americans actually journeyed to Grenada during the Grenada Revolution. Were you one of those people who journeyed to Grenada during that period, sir?
Yeah, that's the point I was just making. I mean, for at least 3 or 4 years. And in fact, one of my fondest memories was being invited to be a keynote speaker of what was called All Heroes Day. And it's an interesting story because I had also led through the National Black Independent Political Party a delegation to Cuba. And when we went to Cuba, unfortunately, we did not get to go to Oriente province, where largely the Afro-descendant.
The Afro-Cubans are, yes.
Afro-Cubans are. So there was an agreement that they would eventually bring me back in order to go to Oriente province. And so it was interesting because I was invited to speak at All Heroes Day, and the Cubans were there, but Prime Minister Maurice Bishop was delayed in getting back for All Heroes Day because he was meeting with leaders all over the world, amassing support and whatever. And so the Cubans were there, and they gave me the opportunity. They said, "Well, Ron, you can go now, and you can be a part of. We'll make sure you go to Oriente province." I had to make a decision as to whether I was going to go or whether I was going to stay for the delayed ceremony and the delayed rally. And I made the decision to stay because obviously my first commitment was really to be there to support the People's Revolutionary Government. But yes, that is the point I was making, is that one of the fears that was articulated by the Reagan administration was that Grenada would become the English-speaking Cuba, as if that was a damning proposition. We didn't see it that way because the Cubans were in the forefront of providing services, doctors, helping with the liberation of Africa from the Battle of Quito Carvanel, the repulsing the South African troops. So we didn't see it that way. And so we would gather, and many of us from all across the Caribbean and in the U.S., in Grenada at the conclusion of the 3-day celebration or 4 days or whatever it was, to do our planning and strategizing. And so we had a very, 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 very close relationship with the People's Revolutionary Government. And of course, Don Rojas. This is where I met him. And then ultimately Don Rojas became the Director of Communications and International Relations for the Institute of the Black World 21st Century. So yes, that is the deep, deep, deep relationship that we built because of, and when I had the opportunity to come back and speak in October of last year at All Heroes Day, I referenced that because, again, we were coming to help be supportive and to help build out and support the Grenada Revolution, but it was an inspiration to just millions of people all over the world.
Now let's talk about Louise Langdon-Little, the mother of Malcolm X. Of course, in the intro, I was able to articulate that connection between, Black activism in the United States and those Caribbean connections. And, you know, I was actually having a conversation with my producer last night, my young producer, Rion Charles, and I was saying to him, how many Grenadians, Trinidadians, Bahamians, Vincentians, St. Lucians, you just name the island and you just name the civil rights activists in the United States and the connections are there. But I think what that is a reflection of is just Pan-Africanism in general. It's the fact that our people in the African diaspora, because of course we are all in the African diaspora, if you think about it, have all been making their contributions wherever they are. So one of those people, of course, is Louise Langdon-Little, the mother of Malcolm X. And of course, as you know, she was born in Grenada and after later immigrated to the United States. So let us talk about why, especially in this month of May, which is also incidentally the birth month of the late Prime Minister Maurice Bishop of Grenada, that this event has been happening. I'm not sure if you even made the connection, but maybe you did, and maybe that's why you planned it. So let us talk about what the Institute of the Black World will be doing with respect of honoring Louise Langdon-Little's legacy in Grenada, in her home country, Grenada.
Yeah, let me just say that this commemoration is a part of our reconnection. Is not just to reconnect; it is to build support. So, as you may be aware, we have developed what we call the Grenada Action Agenda, that we're putting together. So one of the aspects of our agenda, which includes economic development, social, cultural tourism, education, and cross-generational engagement, is to uplift the life and legacy of Louise Langdon-Little. Why? Because it was wonderful that she is the mother of one of the greatest human rights leaders of all time that we produced. That is important and significant in and of itself. However, I think what has been overlooked is that she was an activist. She was someone who was committed to social justice even before she left Grenada. And she left to Grenada, and she became, even before she left, she became affiliated with the Universal Negro Improvement Association, Marcus Garvey's organization. And when she migrated to the United States by way of Canada, she was very much engaged as a member working with her husband in the Universal Negro Improvement Association, Marcus Garvey's organization. So we said to ourselves, wow, why aren't we uplifting, or why are we not collectively celebrating her? Now, it just so happens that on May 19th, it is the centennial birthday of El-Haj Malik El-Shabazz, our Black Shining Prince. So we said, well, this is an occasion for us to, having visited the birth site and having been taken there by one Terrence Wilson, who has been guarding the property, who's been trying to maintain the legacy of Malcolm X in Grenada. And we have joined with him through Dr. Terry Marshall. And we said, well, let's work with him to uplift the legacy of Louise Langdon-Little. And why not on the eve of the centennial of the 100th birthday of El-Haj Malik El-Shabazz? So that's the genesis. It's a heavy lift. It's very difficult, but it's caught fire. We've helped to plant a seed, and that's what we like to do with the Institute of the Black World 21st Century. We have helped to plant a seed so that people in Grenada will come to even themselves become conscious of their own contributions, their own heroes and sheroes, and their role not only in building a just society, but sort of becoming again a bright beacon of possibilities for the world. So yes, we're bringing people. I think we're up to about 40 from all across the Caribbean and the U.S. who are coming. And I must say, one of the great honors is that Dr. Julius Garvey, the son of Marcus Garvey, will in fact be the honorary chair of our delegation. He's coming with us. But we have people who are coming from the business world, from the art world, from the professional world, from educators. We're bringing them from all over the Caribbean and from the United States to be a part of this great commemoration that will take place on the eve. And what's happening is, what we see here is, we're going to be in the first stages of beautifying, we're clearing with the permission of Terrence Wilson, who we must always uplift because he's the one who hung in there stubbornly trying to preserve the memory of Malcolm X and Louise Langdon-Little. Documents that he has that are, I mean, incredible historical documents he's got in bags, and we got to change that so that there's an institution there. So this will be the part of a beginning of a long-term process. So what we're going to be doing, the land is literally being cleared. It's being beautified for this reception. It's a kind of a consecration and a beginning to give the appropriate markers and monuments to this great woman, Louise Langdon-Little, and again, April 14th through the 17th. But the highlight will be on April 17th in the village of the Dig. And we're so happy.
May 17th. May 17th.
May 17th.
Yes, yes.
May 17th.
Yeah,
May 17th.
yeah.
And of course, May 19th is Malcolm's birthday. And literally, I'll be getting back on the 18th. And then on the 19th, I will have the opportunity to go and join with Ilyasha Shabazz and others, the whole family. Ilyasha Shabazz has sent a letter of support, which you can see on our website. And I'll be able to go back and also report back directly from the commemoration and from Omaha, Nebraska, where Malcolm was born. The Malcolm X Foundation is sending a representative, and they are going to scoop up some soil, and they're going to bring that soil and they're going to deposit it on the birthplace of Louise Langdon-Little. And then they're going to take some soil back from there, and they're going to deposit it on the birthplace of Malcolm in Omaha. This, my dear brother, is just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And we so appreciate the Grenadian people for being engaged. Paul Ann Patterson, who is a staunch Grenadian sister who's doing the work, and many others. Excuse me.
No, that's okay. So yes, in talking about Louise Langdon-Little, and of course we will get into the series of activities that you have laid out. You said that she was a member of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. Of course, I believe that would have been Marcus Garvey's association. Is that correct?
Yes, that's just what I stated. That's Marcus Garvey.
Yeah, Marcus Garvey's association. Yes.
Yeah. And his son, who is not just his son, he is a global Pan-African icon, is coming. And in fact, he will be making a keynote presentation on self-reliance and economic development. Yes.
Absolutely. And of course, we know that the role that Marcus Garvey played in Pan-Africanism, for so many years. Of course,
the greatest mass organizer.
Yeah.
Let me say that again. The greatest mass organizer that Black people have ever produced, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. His vision for African redemption, as Bob Marley would say, is beyond, it's almost mind-blowing what he was able to articulate. And it's particularly important in these crucial times, because at the end of the day, what Garvey was laying out, not this sort of fallacious notion that everybody had to go back to Africa. No, that's not what he was talking about. He was saying that Africa is the base for global Black power, righteous Black power, in the sense that the mineral resources, the human resources, Africa is the richest continent on the face of the earth. And so if we're able, when we in fact are able to connect Africa with the Caribbean, with the diaspora in not only the US, but in Europe and the United Kingdom, whatever. And that was represented by the Black Star a steamship line that he was putting together. Once we're able to do that, then we will emerge as a global power that does not have to bow to anyone. And not only that, we're able to take care of our own people. And that becomes the most critical aspects of it. And so when we hear the current administration talk about self-reliance, how do we utilize what we have? Whether that is the rich spices that Grenada is known for, or other aspects of its culture, and then beginning to say, well, look, what could St. Vincent bring to the table? What could Jamaica bring to the table? What could Guyana bring to the table? And then we begin to talk about what does Africans in the U.S., what do they bring to the table? And how do we initiate the kind of internal trade? That's the excitement of what's possible in terms of Black people in the vision of Marcus Garvey. And it was, of course, when you look back at the history of Malcolm X, of course, he drew his inspiration, as did the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He drew his inspiration from Marcus Garvey. So Marcus Garvey is this powerful figure that we need to study more. We need to know more. He's been marginalized. He was ostracized in the United States. Of course, recently, President Biden did finally issue a pardon. But we need to know more about the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. His vision was the vision that we need to be emulating. Kwame Nkrumah picked it up. That flag, of course, has the red, black, and green in it. Many of the flags of the nation of Africa have it in it. So again, forgive me for going on about it. But
it's very important. It's very important, especially for younger generation, to know this history. But and I'm prefacing this question by citing the great South African principle of Ubuntu, which is I am because we are. Yes.
Right. I am because you are because I am.
Because I am, correct. Now, when we think of Malcolm X, a lot of people think of Malcolm X in a vacuum, meaning, he's just this great civil rights activist. At the time, he was called radical. Quite frankly, I go down in the school of Malcolm X more than I do Martin Luther King. But that's an entire philosophical conversation we can have. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because when we think of Malcolm X here, we cannot think of Malcolm X without the influence of his mother, Louise Langdon-Little, in inspiring his passion for the work that he did.
Absolutely, and that's why I think it's important to not leave her out. I mean, to say, and again, I'm not belittling her, to be the mother of one of the greatest freedom fighters of all time, in and of itself is important. But she was not just his mother; she was a mother who was nurturing him, who was guiding him, who herself with her husband were involved with the UNIA. So we need to uplift her influence. In fact, there is strong belief that her hospitalization was not accidental. That was a punitive act because her husband disappeared. He was supposedly overrun by a train or something or other in Michigan. So there's a strong belief. And there are people who have been writing about this, that her hospitalization was to marginalize and to get her out of the way, but thank God Malcolm, carried on. He kind of had a little detour a little bit, as many of our young men have had in the U.S. and indeed even in Grenada throughout the world. But that's the great lesson of Malcolm's life, his ability to transform himself, his ability to use his talent, not his academic talent. He understood inside of himself there was the genius of Imhotep, going all the way back to the ancient history. And he was able to go to prison and read every book in the library, every book, master every word in the dictionary. This brother was something else in terms of the power of who he was. And you cannot acclaim Malcolm without acclaiming Louise Langdon-Little. And you cannot acclaim Louise Langdon-Little without acclaiming Grenada.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now let us talk about the calendar of events, the agenda that would inform your pilgrimage to Grenada. Of course, it starts on Wednesday, May 14th, with an arrival and a welcome reception as part of that arrival. On the 15th of May, Thursday, the 15th of May, there will be a press availability and for media interviews between 10 and 11. And of course, there will be a forum at 12. It's called the Garvey, Malcolm, and Bishop Forum on Economic Self-Reliance and Business Opportunities in Grenada. Of course, you will be having visits with civil society leaders. And then the cross-generational dialogue. Dr. Daniels, I know you were very excited about that. Talk to us about that cross-generational dialogue.
Yeah, let me just quickly say about the forum too, that one of the things that we're eager to do is we have an agenda. By the way, we've met with the Chamber of Commerce in Grenada, and we're looking at tangible pieces that we can pick up in terms of the overall economic plan was articulated and outlined by Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, and picking up on aspects of it, including how do we support the effort to create a sort of a hospital complex that can, that can be self-generative and supportive. But also there's a very specific effort to try to figure out how do we create in the United States an outlet for, particularly in New York, for Grenada arts and crafts. So we're going to be working on that. Now, the cross-generational dialogue. Yes, very, very excited about that, because throughout my life, I've always wanted to, because I was mentored and brought along by elders who saw in me some possibilities. And I always think it's important to pass on that knowledge, but also to bring on the next generation. So when we made our first delegation to Grenada, I asked Pauline Patterson, I said, I think we have to have some kind of engagement with young people. And so even if it's 10 people or 15 people that show up on short notice, we'll do that. Well, because of her extensive connections and because she's such a phenomenal organizer and is so widely respected, and she and her family, we thought there would be 10 or 15 people. It ended up being more than 100. And what happened in that forum was we began to really talk about really the revolution, its strengths, its weaknesses. People began to open up. And by the way, that space was created because Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, after 40 years, was willing to step forward and say, look, we need to begin to heal these wounds. We need to begin to, first of all, resurrect the memory of Maurice Bishop and those who were martyred, but have a conversation about how to heal, right? And so people opened up and talked. And so it was this tremendous conversation that took place. And it reverberated again throughout the island, because we were walking down the street with people saying, hey, we heard about that. You need to continue. You got to continue to do it. So when we came back to Grenada, we had another session, but this time we wanted to connect with the artistic community, because we know that artists are very often, culture workers are at the forefront of helping to develop change. And out of that conversation with our sister Kim Poole, who is out of Baltimore, but has a global network with something called Teaching Artists Institute, we had this incredible conversation in which artists came together to talk about how their art is impacting change in terms of people's lives, but also the potential for changing education, talking about the need for African-centered education or Grenadian-centered education, and how their tools could be used in order to help advance society in that regard. And, there was a commitment on the part of the then president of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry to include them as a member of the chamber, so that what they bring to the table could also influence the economic plan and its implementation. So now when we come back, we're going to continue that conversation, but we're going to continue within the context of also talking about having people fully grasp and understand how it is the case that artists, if you look at a Bob Marley, if you look at a Harry Belafonte, if you look at any number of people, that ability to use art, poetry, spoken word, and all of that is so crucial to providing the inspiration. In the U.S., those freedom songs, that people sung, ain't gonna let nobody turn us around. I'm on my way to freedom. We shall overcome. That the power of the spoken word and the culture. So that is going to be one of the most exciting sessions that we're going to have, and I'm looking forward to it. And then we're going to have a women's empowerment session too.
Yes.
Because the other issue is, if we're honoring Louise Langdon-Little, the other thing that I've always been strong on is I'm not needed to do that, but I think it's important for men to stand up, to say that we honor the leadership and the contributions of our women, of our sisters, as equal partners in this process. And so, but that's not been easy in an era of misogyny and chauvinism and sexism and whatever. And we've been guilty in our community. I'm a recovering sexist. I've been learning. Sisters have been shaping me up so that I can behave appropriately. That's going to be a powerful session when women come together to talk about their professions, political, and various aspects of their lives on the eve of going to that powerful ceremony in Ladib.
And of course, you also have on May 16th, you have reflections on the People's Revolutionary Government that will be hosted by Dr. Marichaud, and that's Terence Marichaud and the Maurice Bishop Foundation from 3 to 5. And of course, you mentioned the Women's Empowerment Roundtable as well. And of course, on Saturday, May 17th, that's of course the big event up in La Digue, the National International Ceremony honoring the life and legacy of Louise Langdon-Little. Quote, a joyful celebration to begin the historic process of marking the site of the family homestead with appropriate monuments and institutions on the eve of the 100th birthday of Malcolm X.
Right. Can I circle back quickly just for a minute?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, Dr.
On the question of that conversation that Dr. Marshall is going to help lead. That is so important because we have people who are with the movement for Black Lives in the United States and Black Lives Matter grassroots who are part of our delegation. So they want to know, because you see, they're carrying on that tradition too. They want to know what was the aims and the objectives of the People's Revolutionary Government. What were its strengths and weaknesses? What lessons can they learn? So that is going to be a very, very, very special session. I just wanted to note that because we do have these young cross-generational, it'll be a cross-generational conversation, but we have these young leaders who are coming with our delegation who want to learn. But that again speaks to the power of Grenada in terms of the fact that people are saying, we want to learn and we want to use those lessons as we build out this movement in the United States and globally.
Absolutely. Dr. Daniel, is there anything else that you want to talk about that we perhaps might have missed in our very freewheeling, very extensive conversation today?
Well, no, I just wanted to again say that, we appreciate you having me on. I'm so excited. I'm stumbling over my words sometimes because I'm just happy to be with you. And like I say, it's so impressive what you're doing. I want to invite you on my little show, the Vantage Point that I have here on WBAI 99.5 FM. You know about WBAI, the Pacific Network in New York. And as an organizer, I have to say, everything that I've talked about, you can go to the website ibw21.org. And you can see the Grenada action agenda. You can see the October 19th communique, and you can and all of the agenda will be posted on the IBW website. And I am so excited about it. We're on our way, and we're going to have a historic, and I do mean historic, commemoration on May 17th, 2025, on the eve of Malcolm X's birthday in Grenada, which is where it ought to be.
Absolutely. Dr. Daniels, thank you so much. Forward ever, backward never. And we will be seeing you in Grenada. Of course, I will be seeing you in Grenada. I'm looking forward to meeting you again, sir.
I'm looking forward to coming to the symposium that you're going to be putting together. I will definitely be coming by.
And we'd love to have you at the forum that we're having at the Trade Center as well. So thank you so much, Dr. Daniels, for appearing on the Bubb Report this week.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Viewers and listeners, this is the Bubb Report. We just concluded a conversation with Dr. Ron Daniels, who informed the national community about the pilgrimage that the Institute of the Black World for the 21st Century will be having in Grenada to honor the life and legacy of the mother of Malcolm X, Malik El-Shabazz. That is Louise Langdon-Little, of course, who was born in La Digue, Grenada, herself a civil rights activist. And they will be heading down there to Grenada, a delegation of more than 30 people from the United States to honor her legacy and the work that she's done for Black liberation, African liberation throughout the African diaspora. Of course, Dr. Daniels will be heading that trip. So we will get to some quick viewer comments before we get to the next segment. Of course, Mr. Jose, unfortunately, Mr. Daniels is not able to speak to that because we have to get to the next segment. But of course, we invite you to appear on to participate in some of the activities that is happening. Mr. Wendell D. Riggs is saying Marcus Garvey visited Grenada, I believe, in 1937 or 1938. MZ Mark mentioned that in his book. We have a comment from Doris. Good morning. Bubb Report via New York City. Thank you for this. 100% is my family. Knew Brother Malcolm's family coming from having Grenadian roots via Queens, New York. Yes, those diaspora connections run really strong. Onika St. John is saying he was an amazing man. The Garvey movement was momentous and its effects will forever impact our lives. Gail Born is saying, very symbolic series of activities. And then we have another comment. She does look like the Langdon family from St. Andrews. So Quincy, are you a Langdon? Are you related? You might be related to Malcolm X. You never know. Ladigue is a very close-knit community. Yeah. Ernesto is saying Dr. Daniels just had a tribute ceremony for Don Rojas. Of course, for those who don't know, Don Rojas was, of course, the press secretary to Grenada's late Prime Minister, Maurice Bishop. And Margaret Francis is saying that first festival of the revolution was phenomenal. Of course, viewers and listeners, we also want to know where you're watching the Bubb Report from this week. We would love to hear from you as well. Let us know where you're watching. And of course, for those of you who are watching us on social media, please do us a favor by liking and sharing the live stream. Now, for the second segment of the program, before we get into it, we want to take this opportunity again to inform the national community in Grenada of the Bubb Report's inaugural Future Forward Summit in honor of the late Leslie Pear, Lou Smith, and George Grant. Of course, they were titans of broadcast journalism and broadcasting in Grenada. Now, the core idea behind this summit is to bring together global leaders, thinkers, and experts from various disciplines to engage in deep discussions about the most pressing societal and global issues confronting the Caribbean and Grenada. Now, the event will serve as a platform for exploring complex ideas, fostering understanding, and sparking innovative solutions to challenges facing Grenada and the national community. Now, the event will be held at the Grenada Trade Center Annex, kicking off at 6 p.m. on Thursday, the 15th of May, with a reception, and followed by a public lecture at 7 p.m. with some items of entertainment sprinkled in between. Now, our inaugural guest speaker will be Dr. Didacus Jules, who is the Director General of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. And of course, Dr. Jules was the former Grenadian Education Minister who was also instrumental in establishing the Revolutionary Era Center for Popular Education. And of course, this event is being held to also celebrate the 5th anniversary of this platform, the Bubb Report. Viewers and listeners, this is the Bubb Report. We'll be back for the second segment of the program. Do stay with us.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, we can provide you with that service. We can take you every step of the way during your sorrowful moments. When that need arises, call S.A. Johnson Funeral Home at 347-777-9797. That's 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home is a Caribbean family-owned funeral home here in Brooklyn, providing funeral services, but in a dignified way. From cremation to burial to the repatriation of your loved ones, you don't have to go through the hassle, as we provide exceptional service that allows you to mourn and heal peacefully. For more information, visit our website, www.sajohnsonfuneral.org. Send us an email at sajfuneral@aol.com or call 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity.
And folks, welcome back to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. We're happy that you can stay with us. Of course, the general election last week in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, our neighbors to the south, resulted in a political earthquake with a preliminary, well, not even preliminary now, it's a final configuration of a 26-13-2 parliament, 13-2 seat configuration in the country's 13th parliament. Now, the People's National Movement, which held state power for close to a decade, lost, and they lost badly. Now, anything called a marginal seat was lost by the People's National Movement. Lahokita Talparo left Foster Cummings and flew into the arms of UNC's Philip Watts, who won by over 2,000 votes. Faris Alwari lost San Fernando West to UNC's Dr. Michael Doleth. Tuna Puna was taken by former police officer Roger Alexander, leaving Edmund Ford, who of course was a popular MP, seatless. Now, Wayne Sturge triumphed over Roger Monroe in Toco Sangre Grande, a seat that conventional wisdom thought would have gone to the PNM. And of course, the UNC also emerged victorious in Aranguez St. Joseph, where Dr. Terence Dial Singh lost to Devis Maharaj. Now, once the reversal started, it affected some PNM Heartland seats as well. Now, La Brea, which is a Heartland PNM constituency, also fell, as did Point Fortin. Point Fortin? Gone yellow? Well, I guess the code was coding in that seat there with those two seats. Now, with 26 seats in the bag, the UNC also won an almost constitutional majority in a virtual reboot of its 2010 performance. Now, in 2010, the UNC-led coalition, then known as the People's Partnership, won 29 seats against the PNM's 12. Now, the United National Congress regained the government after a 10-year hiatus, winning a comfortable majority, which it does not even need the support of the opposition or the Tobago seats, quite frankly, to advance its agenda. Now, Grenadian-Canadian pollster, who correctly predicted the 2022 general election outcome in Grenada in favor of the ruling National Democratic Congress, also predicted a UNC win in a landslide, which turned out to be the case. Now, incoming Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar, who makes no bones about her support and admiration for America's MAGA agenda under Donald Trump, was congratulated by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who said Trump and Kamala shares the same vision on so many issues. Now, here to make sense of the election are political scientist Dr. Shane Mohammed and pollster and statistician Dr. Justin Pei. Gentlemen, welcome to the Bubb Report, this week's edition of the Bubb Report. Dr. Mohammed, I hope I did not wake you up too early from partying and fetting. Were you at one of the UNC fets last night, sir? I don't know, maybe.
No. Good morning. Thank you very much for having me. No, I was not. I was busy taking notes and getting ready for yourself and other media personalities in Trinidad that has me in demand these days. As you can see, I don't even have a decent hairstyle.
Not even a decent haircut. But Dr. Mohammed, of course, you were here in January. And I want to begin with you before I get to Dr. Pehe. You were here in January, and the conventional wisdom at the time was that UNC's Kamala Persad-Bissessar was essentially running her political organization in a very dictatorial fashion, in the way that she went about with the internal election, in the way that some of the candidates were selected in the candidate selection process leading up to the elections. Of course, some candidates were not properly screened in the way that the party said about the screening process. And of course, given her age and everything, and the history of the UNC from 2005 to 2010, all of those were stacked against her. How was she able to, I suppose, buck all of those liabilities that clearly she had to pull off this landslide victory?
Well, liabilities are only liabilities unless you have not reflected and assess the past in order to inform the present and the future. And even when I was here on your show in January,
yes,
the stack against Mrs. Persad-Bissessar was starting to crumble, and the stack against Dr. Rowley was starting to build even stronger, right? And one will have to take into consideration that Mrs. Persad-Bissessar, I said it after your show, I said, what does Mrs. Persad-Bissessar want in this, in this final chapter? As she, this is the final chapter of her political story, her political book. There's only few options after becoming prime minister again. And I said it out loud in Trinidad and Tobago. I said it in the Caribbean as well. What does Mrs. Persad-Bissessar want to that final chapter to be? A blaze of glory, or the decline of defeat? And clearly, it was a blaze of glory. And while you say that there's nothing that dictates the UNC or any political party from sourcing a candidate beyond the traditional screening process, if the screening process provides that there was not a good candidate enough, she has that power. The team has the power to say, look, let's go and find somebody else who we think is better poised to do the job and could take the seat. And that has happened in several cases. And it worked. You have to also take into consideration.
Yeah. I think we lost Dr. Mohammed there for a second. Internet issues.
I think you got me
go
again.
ahead. Go ahead. Repeat what you were just saying there. Take into consideration. Go ahead, sir.
Taking into consideration that, the country had reached a point in its political life, in its history, and in this 10-year period of the administration, that people had reached a breaking point. And I think, several things in the end stacked up that just frustrated people. And it was evident that up to now, up to today, in the aftermath of the election, we still haven't had Dr. Rowley have the grace to congratulate Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar, nor has Mr. Young. And they have not wished the lady well. I mean, this is the greatest political comeback in our political history, right? That a prime minister has ever been able to achieve. And she has to be acknowledged for that. And the first time that a prime minister has won an election in modern political times twice with what I would say is a huge majority. But Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar, if she requires a constitutional majority, can also lean towards the 2 seats in Tobago with negotiations to get it.
Stick a pin, Dr. Mohammed, because there is so many tea leaves. I would say this after the election, because I was monitoring the election on Monday. I'm a nerd. I'm a student of history. Everybody knows who knows me personally knows I'm a nerd. I was talking about this election for the whole week because there is so much to unpack. But Dr. Pear, I want to bring you in here, Dr. Pear, because this is the second election in the Caribbean that you were able to predict correctly. You predicted the outcome of the Grenada election to a statistical accuracy in Grenada. You predicted 9 seats. The NDC won 9 seats, right? You predicted a landslide in the Trinidad and Tobago election. The UNC won a landslide. So, Dr. Pear, you are increasingly becoming the Caribbean's Nate Silver, I suppose. So, welcome to the Bubb Report, sir.
Good morning, Dr. Bob. Good morning, Dr. Mohammed. Good morning to the glorious people of the Caribbean, Grenada, the diaspora, everyone. Thank you for having me on the show, Dr. Bob. As I said that, fortunate or unfortunate about our company. Our company name is Dunn, Pierre Barnett and Company Canada Limited. We are a research firm, basically labor market research. However, what we have that maybe most other organizations or governments don't have is the access to a database. So we have maybe the largest database of BIPOC people, especially in the Caribbean. Anyone that votes, we'll have them in our database. Anyone maybe goes to school or we have them in their database. But most importantly, everyone, there's something called the elections, Parliamentary Elections Commission. There is this white paper that is in every constitutions. We have a data on that. So we collect a lot of data. And I also want to give thanks to the government of Canada, who provides some type of support for us in order for us to collect that data. And the reason why this data is so important is because no one is collecting it. None of the political organizations, none of the governments, no one is collecting it. However, in order for you to, so we have what is called a Black Data and Information Portal. So it's www.dppglobal.net. So it's a black data. It contains hundreds of thousands of named voters, registration, who they are, and we could basically identify anyone in the region as long as they're on social media, as long as they have a cell phone, as long as they are on the internet. And what we do, we invite these people to come into the portal. We ask a normal person about 200 questions about anything, and they will be able to give us their answers. We have to assume that they are speaking the truth. In the case of Trinidad and Tobago, we also work as what is called data brokers. So a lot of the political organizations call us, want to conduct a survey. So they will ask us, could you sample 10, 20, 30, 100 people? Could you sample 200 people? And in the case of Trinidad and Tobago, some of the organization had reached out to us to sample some of their.
Which specific organization was that? Was that the UNC?
Well, I mean,
you're not privy to say. I mean,
I mean, other organizations.
The last time you were here, Dr. Pear, I tried to get. Are you running away, sir? Don't run away.
No. I just want to kind of get over it, because when we came out with the results.
Yes, sir.
When you came out with the results, our computer models was telling us that there would be a landslide. Okay, I was very cautious. So when the analysts presented the report to us, we were very cautious and said, well, that cannot be. So we had to look at the numbers. So what we did is that we've had to force correct, and but it was saying a landslide. However, what we were able to do, we had a very good sample frame in Trinidad. In terms of what we did is that instead of doing the normal procedures, you speaking to people, what we did is that we collect data in terms of a sample frame from persons, faith-based organization. So I think we learned that technique when we did the Turks and Caicos National Skills Audit and the Turks and Caicos Migration Study for the British government. We found out that persons who are persons are in the faith-based organizations give more or less the most accurate data. So in Trinidad, we interviewed close to over 60 churches to get what they are saying. 60 quote unquote church faith-based organization, and the data that we collected, we said, well, this this is very surprising. We believe that that the PNM would have lost and the UNC would have been in power for many reasons. And I said one of the main reasons I said was that, for example, the issue with Mr. Stuart Young, the former Prime Minister, I think the election was way too early. Our computer models were predicting that in order for him to make an impact in the election, he should have conducted had the election between September 24th and October 10th, not April 29th. So there are a lot of mistakes that were made, and hopefully we will get into that as soon as later on into the show. But in terms of prediction, we have superior technology. There's no other organization that maybe has the kind of technology that we have. We have never really made an incorrect decision, an incorrect prediction. We also, it's not only two, but we have also in other countries in the Caribbean, we have also assisted other Caribbean countries, and they have also been successful. So in terms of our methodology and the way that we do things, the way that we conduct an analysis, I believe is something that is getting traction. A lot of persons have reached out to us, and I think that we are respectful. However, our goal is to ensure that the electorate, the most important persons in any country, the voters, get and put persons in place who who can best represent them, and this is what I'm doing.
Absolutely, and Dr. Pear, we are going to get into the weeds with respect to the data that you collected, the methodology that you employed. We will get back to that shortly, but I do want to begin that conversation on the methodology by getting back to Dr. Mohammed Hare. Dr. Mohammed, with respect to the methodology, with respect to the seats, again, and I referenced it in the intro, I mean, I would tell you, I mean, the Tobago seats there, clearly, you know, it's a case where I suppose the momentum from the Tobago House of Assembly elections and the momentum from the Farley effect and all of that held in Tobago, yes? But what was shocking to me was the fact that in a lot of the PNM strongholds, we're talking 0.14, but even in the PNM, the East-West corridor, which is PNM territory essentially, the vote margins were so close. It was so close. So what do you account for that? Is it the Stuart Young effect? Is it the fact that the base of the PNM was that their way of registering their disapproval with the way in which Mr. Young was elected by the parliamentary caucus to become prime minister while Dr. Rowley stayed on? I mean, when you were on the program the last time, you said that there was absolutely nothing wrong with this dual leadership type of configuration that we see in the PNM. But were you wrong there? I mean, what do you think of how that played out?
No. The dual leadership was not. There was nothing wrong with the dual leadership in the principle that they were looking to execute. The dual principle was not the problem. The problem here is that you hear me, right?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello? Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, sir.
One can function at the level of the political level, and one can function at the level of the prime ministerial level, which is in government. However, what was the backlash of both of them and the collective of the duality of them? The issue was that they did not have a good track record of good governance, and the country had become frustrated by both Dr. Rowley and Mr. Young, because Mr. Young was seen as the wingman to Dr. Rowley, and therefore the governance aspect of this thing is where the duality of the leadership that they sought to create a new dynamic in Trinidad and Tobago, while in principle and it would have been a good thing to try, it could not work because Dr. Rowley had believed that Mr. Young was the best candidate that he could have put forward. No, maybe if he had used Ms. Beckles instead as the prime ministerial candidate, we might have seen a different result, because Ms. Beckles is not someone that's tied directly to Mr. Dr. Rowley's legacy as prime minister, but Mr. Young is, right? And therefore, we also saw that after the swearing in of Mr. Young as prime minister, I think that was the greatest blessing that ever happened to Trinidad and Tobago, because as Justin is saying, is that the election we would have thought would have happened somewhere between August to September. And I would have thought that as a new prime minister, you would have given yourself enough time to establish a legacy or a reputation or a name or something that would have given you an opportunity to detach yourself from Keith Rowley. But what Mr. Young and what Dr. Rowley failed to see is that Mr. Young lacked the political astuteness, he lacked the tact, he lacked the strategy, he lacked the wisdom, he lacked the knowledge, he lacked the experience that is required in holding the role of political leader. Because on the day after he was sworn in and his cabinet selected, the government crashed. Why did the government crash? The government crashed because Mr. Young failed to understand and acknowledge the political personalities within his circle of 21 members. He failed to understand their experience. He failed to understand their entrenchment and institutionalism within the party system. And he went ahead insulting several of them by demoting them, by not giving them roles, by those that would have been serving as junior ministers. He went and found people from outside to bring them in to make them ministers. So a lot of the political dynamics erupted in Balize House and caused the government to collapse. So when you are trying political experiments, which political experiments are good, but political experiments can only be successful when you use the right persons to fill the positions that you want the experiment to work. So in principle, it can work, Because in Trinidad and Tobago, we've had a scenario where a prime minister did not get up one morning because he died, and they had the same PLM had to go into a mode where they had to select a new prime minister from amongst the deputies, and then that person had to be appointed the interim political leader thereafter. We saw in 1986 when the PLM, everybody, including the political leader, get their tail cut in a 33-3 dynamic, and the party had to now immediately select an opposition leader, which would have been Mr. Manning. And then it was only until 1987 that Mr. Manning actually became the political leader of the PNM. So there is that level, to a lesser extent, of the duality, but the principle by which and the format by which Dr. Rowley wanted to start a new dynamic did not have the right characters. And therefore it could, and listen, at the end of the day, I will always tell, and I say it here, I say it in Trinidad, Mr. Young is an astute is an astute legal mind, but he's a travesty of a politician. And I make no apologies for saying that, because in my book, I make no apologies for saying that, because in my book, when you sit next to a prime minister and you sit in his office with him and he whispers and he speaks to you, you are either gaining knowledge or you are being spoon-fed from an academic perspective. I'm either teaching my student or my understudy knowledge and wisdom, and they're gaining that as they go along, so that when you hand over the reins, they can stand on firm ground, or you're literally spoon-feeding them and telling them what to do and how to do it, and they're not gaining anything. And that is where I believe there is where the relationship between Rowley and Young was.
And Dr. Pear, a lot of what Dr. Mohammed just articulated here actually is borne out in the data that you collected with respect to, because a lot of the people that you surveyed identified as belonging to the PNM's base. So can you talk about that through line in your data, the dissatisfaction that many people had with Mr. Stuart Young as leader of the PNM?
Yes, very good. Yes. So just to inform the public that, so what we did when we conducted this study, we interviewed about 5,013 persons. Okay, so it was a very good.
Can I just say one thing, Dr. Pear?
Yes.
I must say congratulations on that. Congratulations on the 5,000, because good God, there were polls in Trinidad where I don't understand how these people came up with their samples, and it was so distracting. It's not funny.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes. So yes. So we came up. We had a sample frame. As I said, that we have a long history in Trinidad. You may know that in 2019, the CARICOM, we conducted the human trafficking study. So we encompasses a large data set of persons. We also did the PAHO, World Health Organization, migration study in the Caribbean. So we did like maybe 30-something thousand people. So it's a lot of persons. So we still have a lot of these people in our database. So, but with respect to the sample frame, we conducted, as I said, our margin of error was about 2.9. So it was pretty accurate. So we conducted about the survey on 5,013 persons. I must say that the 1,893 said that they supported the UN, the PNM. 1,731 said that they supported the UNC. We had persons who never voted, 533. Persons who did not support either PNM or UNC, 338. People who never voted, 137. And persons within the diaspora, 333. What we ended up doing, we asked persons about 18 general questions, and one of the most important questions we asked, obviously, we stratify them, random stratified sampling based on age, based on gender, based on rural, urban, and maybe and the general 18 subsets of a typical voter universe in a specific country. But one of the most important questions we asked them, we asked persons that their dissatisfaction level with the current economic situation in Trinidad and Tobago. How dissatisfied are they? And the majority, over 78% of persons, were very dissatisfied with the economic situation, with the way things were going. So we asked them, and this is when we realized that we had something going on. There was momentum. When we asked them that, we asked another question. Do you believe, question 2, do you believe a change in government could improve your current situation? And with that question, we found that over 71% of the people said, yes, a change of government would improve my situation. So we said, well, so we also asked them that. We also found out that we asked persons, what are some of the concerns that you are upset about or cautious about? And persons who said that, hey, the issue with the foreign exchange shortage. They believe that if a change of government, the situation with the foreign exchange would get better. Crime and public safety, the deterioration of the social and economic condition, the decline of the energy sector, the relationship with Venezuela. Persons were also concerned about the fear of the international tariff. They also felt that if this government got elected, the government, Mr. Rowley and his and his rhetoric was more or less touting in the face of America. And if this party remains in power, it will affect Trinidad and Tobago. So persons did not want to take that chance to elect their PNM. They also mentioned about corruption and government issues, the health system, education system, etc. But what is most important, why this shift, is that the choice of leader. It felt that the choice of leader, as one of the persons within the focus group, the choice of leader was not, it does not symbolize what PNM should be. PNM historically is a black party, and they felt that UNC is an Indian party. UNC has consistent representation. However, putting a different quote-unquote person did not represent them. So we predicted also there would be what is called protest votes. And in the part before the election came out, I also spoke in the election. We found out that Miss Penelope Beckles, they said that why didn't this person was favored to be the leader. So I ended up interviewing her and saying, we're hearing your name, and we had a very good interview. And now I heard that she is now the opposition leader. So
yes, opposition leader, not leader of the party, because they have not had a convention, but ought to be a fly on the wall for that convention, Dr. Mohammed.
Yes. Okay. And this is so when we spoke to her, we realized that there were issues between herself and Dr. Rowley and other issues. But I want to say that I don't know how the PNM did not pick that up. Why the PNM did not conduct surveys. In fact, what I've also heard that they conducted many surveys, and the surveys led them to the conclusion that Mr. Stewart was not the ideal candidate to lead their political party. And as a result, you see what happened. Because what we have to understand is that the people, the voters, are smarter than we think. Leaders have the opinion that they know everything, and this election is also a critical lesson for Grenada. It's a critical lesson for the Caribbean, and it's something that we have to learn from. Thank you.
Yes. Let's see here. I want to bring back Dr. Mohammed here on the question of the identity politics, on the question of this business of identity politics. Because in my view, I felt as if the PNM was trying to show that, hey, we are not only the quote-unquote black party here. We are not the African party, that our party has the capacity to embrace all Trinidadians, where every creed and race can find an equal place. What is wrong with that, Mohammed? Are we suggesting now that identity politics still plays a significant role in the body politic of Trinidad?
Listen,
even though Trinidad, the leaders of the both parties try to downplay this idea of race. Thoughts?
No, you see, I agree with Dr. Pay on something. I strongly agree with him on this. The problem, I remember for Carnival, when Bunji Garlin launched "The Ground Will Carry It," that particular song, I turned to a friend of mine in the middle of Carnival and I said, "You see that song? That song is going to make it for that is going to be the campaign song of political parties." Because you're right, Dr. Pay. The lesson here is that you can't want to run a government and be superior to the people. You can't want to run a government and not listen to the people. You can't want to run a government and dictate to the people your own thoughts and feelings as if you feel what they feel when you don't. And that was a great disconnect between the PNM administration for 10 years, not for 5, for 10 years. It just, as years went by, it got extremely worse. I mean, people would go to MPs, members of parliament became inaccessible. They were so absorbed by the grandeurs of office. They were so absorbed by this power, this "I am the honorable minister," that they literally turned their backs on the real needs of the people. And I'll go a step further. The arrogance of the government was, in my opinion, something that was man-made in terms of the man-made economics distress that our people felt. I believe that, because you can't tell me that a prime minister is changed on a Monday or a Friday, whatever day he was changed, and a new minister of finance came in the day after, and within the space of 3 months, or 3 weeks, you were able to find foreign exchange. So where was the foreign exchange all the time? Hiding in a little cave in the northern range? Where was it? Where was this foreign exchange that people were complaining about for 10 years? Right? So,
or maybe in the caucus.
Or in Point 14. Yes. Down at the port of La Brea. Right? Or somewhere up in Toko, where the port is. Right? But the thing is, people are going to accuse me of being biased towards the UNC government. But I'm really and truly disgusted by the PNM administration. And I'll tell you this, another thing I want to tell Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean that they can learn from is what the Rowley administration did not, while at the surface level, in what their ministers look like, one was Chinese, one was white, one was local, one was French Creole, one was Indian, that kind of thing. That diversification that you saw was really and truly not the diversification envisioned by Mr. Manning. Yes. It was, in fact, a superficial diversification, because there are people in the aftermath of the election saying to me, Dr. Mohammed, we could not approach you, even though we know that you have knowledge and you can do what you were saying out there made sense to all of us, because the country had become PNM polarized as by the order of the Prime Minister. That anybody that did not speak the PNM cult language, nobody that speak the language that opposed the PNM, nobody that provided an opinion that was opposing to the PNM, they were literally scratched off the list. That's the difference with Prasad Bissessa. Prasad Bissessa, between 10 and 15, even in the Pandey era, they always spoke a language where it was all of us. And she said it again in her inaugural speech.
That slogan was, "When UNC wins, everybody wins."
Yes, exactly. Right. Yes. And the thing about it, that's the truth. Mrs. Prasad Bissessa also followed it up in her inaugural speech, that she was going to find the talent and the expertise and the skill sets, even if it did not exist within the framework of the PLM, of the UNC, she would go and find it outside of the UNC, which means that if you're a smart PLM and you have a brain and you can do critical thinking, then you are useful in the governance framework. Tell me, we have two persons that were once former PNM ministers that are forming critical roles in the current cabinet. So she's walking and speaking the talk. The thing about it is, on the other side of things, you can't want to govern. You can't. This is what Mr. Manning also paid a very hard price for in 2010. You can't have the ambition to carry a nation's quote unquote prosperity, and you can't and build wonderful things, right? And then you have people catching the tail, you know. You see, when people in Togo and the people in Mausaka and Malabar and the people down in Point 14 don't have resources. They are saying, you are talking prosperity and economy, and you people are saying, but wait, you think Trinidad, and you're right, Dr. Pierre, I have this tonight, today, you're gonna make me sweat with excitement. But the thing about it is, you're right. How could you talk about prosperity? How could you talk about, you know, distribution of resources, but the people who were loyal to you for the last 40 years, this is the first time under a UNC brand. This is the first time under a UNC, in the 36 years the UNC has been in existence, that they have won Point 14 and Lebre. The only other time was during the NAR win in 1986. Other than that, Point 14 and Lebre were strongholds for the PNM. And they literally said, listen, we had enough of your nonsense. Because I want to know, in the 10 years that Mr. Dr. Rowley was Prime Minister, in the 42 days that Stuart Young was, in the 10 years that Stuart Young was a minister of the government, wingman to the former Prime Minister, how many times did he go to Point 14? How many times did he go to Lebre? How many times did he go and sit down with the people and speak with them? If Stephen McClashy, who's the former MP for Lebre, will go down in the history of Trinidad and Tobago of being one of the most unknown politicians ever, because he did absolutely nothing for the people of Lebre. And Lebre is a very unique constituency where, because of the existence of the pitch lake, there's that soil and that land movement is consistently occurring, and pitch is consistently growing in places outside of the lake, right? There's an interesting geographic and geophysics kind of thing going on there that you need to pay particular attention to, things like simple things like infrastructure, growth, development. People are passing through there on a daily basis. You know, the highway to Point 14 also has to be taken into consideration about whether or not Lebre stands the planning and urban risk of losing economic growth and development through little small businesses and all of that. You are in government for 10 years and you did not take that into consideration. The people in Togo sent a very clear message, because you've forgotten the villages of Togo and all of those villages on the north and northeastern coast of Trinidad and Tobago that are a haven for ecotourism and marine tourism. So, you know, this is a culmination. This is the feather that broke the camel's back. People of Trinidad and Tobago became frustrated. And I've always said, say what about Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar? She rewarded loyalty in her government, and she's also read the riot act at the same time to them. She's put in frameworks. I don't realize the people out there who saw that cabinet yesterday don't realize that they are reinforcement frameworks to keep an eye on ministers, so that when they do screw up, they would have a witness next to them saying, yeah, he do nonsense, he need to go, right? And if there's any doubt that she's not going to do it, I think people are very, very mistaken. I think Dr. Rowley, he bullied Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar in the parliament. He chastised the lady. He tried to invoke cancer culture on her, and she made a comeback, and she has to be commended for that. She also created a campaign structure and strategy that is much different to that of 2010 and 15, and it led to her having success. I will go on to say that, you know, for every bad thing and every failure of the previous administration, instead of addressing it, they attacked the opposition, and especially the opposition leader, and said the worst about her. So they were deflecting. They were a government of failures and deflection, and they felt the wrath. And I am still upset this morning that this is almost a week since the general election, and Stuart Young is still very bitter as of yesterday. You know, he called them the coalition of self-interest. But what did you, brother man, do to engender public trust and confidence? What you've suffered from is a double international political whammy of suffering from the Kamala Harris effect and becoming the Liz Truss of the world for a second time. You are one of the shortest serving prime ministers in the globe, not just in Trinidad and Tobago's history. And why an election was triggered was because of your political inexperience and your lack of understanding of your political environment. and your lack of understanding of your political party structure and institutions. That's where we are today.
Well, you're very impassioned there about how all of that went down. So many more tea leaves to unpack. I honestly think we need a part 2 for this conversation. So Dr. Pay and Dr. Mohammed, I really wish you can come back for a part 2, in all honesty. But Dr. Mohammed, again, Kamala Persad-Bissessar served as Prime Minister from 2005 to 2010. And there was a reason why her party lost that first election after 2010, right? It was because of some of her own failings between 2005 and 2010. Yeah, of course, one might say that the 2020 election was, I guess, COVID sort of impacted how that election played out. But even the whole question of the race talk and all of that, what she called Rowley Blackman on the other side and all of that, I suspect she probably learned from all of that. Now, in the context of the Caribbean people are looking at this, Grenadians are looking at this and say, oh, is that the same woman who said that, Trinidad and Tobago will not be an ATM? That's certainly not CARICOM speak for a Caribbean leader, right? That is not integrationist talk. Now, she fully embraced. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
I would say to you on that one. I'd say to you on that, right? That she was right, because let me tell you something. Even in the quote unquote economic hardships that Trinidad and Tobago felt during the Rowley administration, which is the period 2015 to 2025. I don't recall anybody coming to Trinidad and Tobago's rescue and saying, let us help, or let us advise, or Mr. Prime Minister. In fact, there were those around, and I won't call no name because I don't want to end up in a diplomatic row, or a CARICOM row. But there are people who were saying, look at them Trini people, look at where they reach now. They are now down spiral. And now everybody is saying, I mean, if you come to Trinidad and Tobago, the puis are in bloom, the breeze seems to be lighter, the spirit of the people seems to be a lot calm. And, people are saying, yes, prime ministers make mistakes and they pay the political price, which Mrs. Persad-Bissessar did. But in that 10 years, with age comes wisdom, with age come and with experience and with staying out there and understanding. And she said it in her speech. She's learned. And if she hasn't learned, she's going to have several realizations very quickly that she's going to have to correct. So you're right. Between 10 and 15, there were errors. And I believe that those errors, given the majority that has been given, it's signaling again. Persad-Bissessar has a second chance. And a second chance is a very rare thing with this magnitude of a political earthquake in modern political history within the region as well.
But let us also talk about her embrace of the Trump administration. The Caribbean is not looking too kindly to Trump's overthrows in the Caribbean. His very irrational tariffs, his racism, his xenophobia, his right-wing posturing, his anti-immigrant posturing that affects Caribbean people. His anti-intellectualism that's going after people like myself as a professor, right? She has embraced this, and she's called the woke agenda, and she loves that Trump is going after the woke agenda. Rubio's tweet, as I said in the intro, said that Kamala Persad-Bissessar shares Trump's vision, and I'm saying, oh, but the reason why I'm bringing this up, not in the context of what's happening locally in Trinidad, and of course she has a right to align to whatever ideology she wants to align. In the context of CARICOM and what that would mean from CARICOM, I think a lot of people in CARICOM, a lot of leaders in CARICOM looked very closely and are looking very closely at her posturing towards the United States. What do you think that would portend for the CARICOM now?
Dr. Bubb, there's one thing that the Caribbean is not really not looking at. That is very critical. Yes. One, nobody else, with the exception of Guyana, nobody else is such as Venezuela as Trinidad and Tobago. And we have to take into consideration the geopolitics that is existing in the world as it pertains to Venezuela is very relevant to Trinidad and Tobago. And we need a prime minister that is going to be able to stand up and not become subject Dr. Rowley got blacklisted. Trinidad and Tobago got blacklisted by the United States in the first Trump administration because Dr. Rowley just didn't realize that the geopolitical era and the geopolitics that was taking place in the region and globally was very much relevant to Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, under Dr. Rowley's 10 years prime minister, We had a Russian ship in the port of Port of Spain, and everybody was going, what? What is a Russian warship doing in the port of Spain and in the Trinidad and Tobago waters? And the response was, well, they came for fuel. They came to get fuel, right? A Russian warship doesn't need to come to Trinidad and Tobago for warship, for fuel. They could have gone to their friend Venezuela. We also have to take into consideration that is during the 2018 onwards period, we had an influx of Venezuelans coming into Trinidad illegally, and nobody has done an actual human resource audit of those persons to figure out where and how can they fit in to the sociological and economic framework to provide a service and a resource and to become a contributor to our society. Nobody has checked. Did the government do a human resource database through the Ministry of Public Administration to say, listen, what is your qualification? Are you a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, a housekeeper, a maid, a gangster? Nobody did that. There's no frameworks in that. You had 10 years. You had 7 years between 2018 and 2025 to do an official audit of everybody and say, come here and let me see what you do, what you bring to the table, and how could you contribute? And if you're here illegally, what frameworks were put in place to ensure that you go back to where you come from if you are a liability to the society of Trinidad and Tobago. Nobody's taking that into consideration as well. There were several failures under the administration of Rowley that now has to be corrected in a strategic manner that allows for us to be able to figure out where we are going. And it is very clear. The Trump administration has said any transactions that provides a direct source of revenue to Maduro, because Maduro is a dictator. He's more than he's on the edge of dictatorship. He's more than authoritarian because he's controlling all of the funds and all of the riches for himself and his little cronies in Venezuela. And I've seen this myself through a study. I've been there. I've seen the study. I've written the paper, right? And this was way before all of this mess of movement of people took place. This collapse of governance took place in Venezuela. This was just at the beginning. I mean, when people were starting to move in droves, Panama put in a visa. Colombia stopped taking people. Brazil said, hell no, we had enough. Other nations in South America said, no, this is no, no, no. When did Trinidad and Tobago say no? So, what is... You're muted.
Yeah, I was muted here. But a lot of the material and economic conditions in Venezuela is due to an embargo that was placed on Venezuela by the United States, right? Because
Agreed,
the United States is let me finish, please, Dr. Mohammed. Because the United States clearly has an issue with going into other people's countries when they're dissatisfied with election results. Whatever you think of Mr. Maduro, yes, we know that Mr. Maduro has a checkered past and a checkered current reality, and that is why Venezuelans are leaving, right? Because the United States, as they did with Cuba, placed an embargo. Well, I understand that, but I think we cannot articulate what is happening in Venezuela in isolation to say that it's all Maduro's fault.
Right.
It's also Biden's and Trump's fault as well.
And that is for Biden. That is for Biden and Trump to deal with. But Trinidad and Tobago shares a very, very, very close. I mean, literally, we have to be careful where we go. How far we swim. The fishermen have to be careful how far they go out of Point 14 and the Carcass, because if they don't go, if they go too far, not looking at where the buoys that demarcate our maritime borders, they get caught up by the Guardia Nacional, right? So we have to be we have to also take into consideration that Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana in particular have very unique geographic locations where we need to also seek our own interests, and we can't afford to be cancelled either. And Trump is also a political animal that one doesn't want to be cancelled by for economic and geopolitical reasons.
I think sometimes it's a good thing to be cancelled by somebody like him. Sorry to say, given everything that he's doing in the U.S., but we can have that conversation offline. My producer is yelling at me because but this has been such a spirited Mohammed conversation, Dr. Mohammed. We really, really enjoy your inputs. Dr. Pear, we want to get to you for some closing comments because we have to get to a final segment. Dr. Pear, where does your research go to? Are you looking at other elections in the Caribbean? What are we looking at? Are you going to be, doing polling and research in other jurisdictions? We have elections coming up in other islands as well.
Yes, I must say thank you again, Dr. Bob, Dr. Mohammed. Thank you very much again for the listening public. Yes, somehow the elections in Trinidad and Tobago, Grenada, has more or less sort of kind of put us on the map, and we have other organizations have reached out to us, within the Caribbean. So we normally are currently working with other. Some of the political parties, and because as I said, I believe that our technology is a bit more superior than most other persons, and I always say that if someone is aligned with us, the other party cannot win because of the kind of technology we have. Mostly realizing
That's a very big statement to make. If they're not aligned with you, they can't win. Okay.
No, they cannot. They cannot. Because as I said, that most of the political organizations in the Caribbean, don't have basic information on the citizens or on the members. For example, what's the average income of a NDC person, or the average age, how much money they make, or how much household size, where all these basic information. Okay, what's the average cell phone number of cell phones in the home, how many persons they have abroad, all the basic socio and other data. Most people do not really look at. We kind of keep copious notes on these information. And as I said, as our database grows bigger and bigger, we want to ask persons more and more questions. And as I said, that most of the governments in the region, they do not collect data, or surveys. As we say, only gods do not conduct surveys. And we see that none of the governments really conducting any type of surveys. And if they have to conduct a survey or research, it's an international agency that that will give them funding to conduct these surveys. And we want to advise these governments to conduct your own survey, conduct your own research. You need data on your constituency. You need data on your members. You need to know who they are. What are some of the challenges they have? What make them tick? And as I said, going back to the elections of 2022, when we presented the report, when he publicized the report, instead of persons, coming to us and acknowledging the report and said, how can we learn from this? Just as what the UNC did when we produced the report, the UNC called us. They said, can you help us? You said that you flagged these marginal seats. Which marginal seats? Where are the gaps? How can you help us? And we show them, what can you do in the last couple of days? What to say? And we show them, guys like, Mark Wade and all these other persons came to us. And in the case of Grenada, for example, I just want to, when we brought the report, one side was against us, one side, instead of acknowledging the survey, condemn the survey, condemn me as a person, condemn, I'm from Fontenoy, I'm from the back of Fontenoy, and I said that, and this is where we as people should really understand the data. So as statisticians, we are blind to the data. We see the data as a guide to guide us, and it's to inform policies. And what we see that more and more is that the leaders, the leaders do not take science and data seriously. They believe that they know everything, and we want to encourage leaders, not only in Grenada or Trinidad, but in the Caribbean, to use data in your decision making. Conduct the surveys, have a database, and if you do that, obviously, when decisions are made during election, it will be beneficial. And lastly, elections are not necessarily in when elections are called. That's not when you campaign. You have to be campaigning throughout 2.5 years. 3 years is an average time for campaigning. And what we see, for example, we take it from the UNC. When we had discussions with the UNC, when you started your campaign, they started campaigning a long time ago.
With the Monday night forums, yes, they had the Monday night forums, yes.
Yes. Whereas most of the other persons, as and this is a message to the NDC, they have
and the PNM as well,
and
on the PNM too.
To start campaigning. We're asking the NNP to start campaigning and take this thing seriously. It's a full-time job. It's not to be done by part-time people. It's a full-time job that deals with science. Okay, it is science, algorithms. Okay, and one of the challenges we found out in our analysis, the whole issue of social media in Trinidad. About 900,000 people on the internet every single day. Okay? So when we look at the algorithms, when you looked at the analysis, we found out that there was an average of 5.6 million minutes of internet interaction. Like to share ratio of the UNC is 73% compared to the PNM. The social media minute 1.2 million. Like to share ratio 43%. So, all of these indicators are so important that nobody even look at it. And this is the reason why I said that, if we assist one company, the other one party, the other can't win, because this is some of the algorithms. This is when we put bots onto these political campaigns. The bots bring data to us and guide us, because we do not know everything. And that's where artificial intelligence comes in the whole idea of decision making. And we are encouraging political leaders, especially the situation that is going on in Grenada. I'm very keen to start. It is too late. All the political parties are now too late. The election is 2027. It is too late. They need to start.
Well, I hope the newly minted political leader of the NNP is listening to you, and of course the Honorable Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell and his team, that they're listening. So, so yes,
Justin,
Dr.
I think you should
Mohammed,
come to Tobago.
yes.
What's that?
Justin, Tobago.
He said to come to Tobago.
Who has THA elections in less than a year?
Okay.
Well, that's a local government election.
So that's somewhere you. Tobago.
Yes. Well, yeah. So if they are, as
Tobago
I said,
would be ideal for you to assist as well.
And again, Tobago is ideal because for example, you kind of in terms of the voter universe, you break the country down into the parishes, into constitutions, into the 18 districts. Then you get idea of the cell phones, the social media impact, the cell phone towers. All of these things play an integral part in your decision making, and this is why this is it's serious business.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Mohammed, sir, over to you for some closing comments. And as always, we value your input, your insights, as judged by the comments. Viewers and listeners, sorry we could not get to a lot of your comments directed at Dr. Mohammed, but we really have to get to the next segment. Over to you, sir, for some closing comments until the THA elections again. Go ahead, sir.
I'm really happy. Dr. Pear, you're really excited. I'm really excited to know what you're doing, because what we're doing is something that's very modern, and it's a very different but also very strategic way. You need to, and I really do agree with Dr. Pear that campaigning never ends, and you have to strategically position your party in order to serve and to be able to gather the information that you need in order. The election cycle is not done after the election day. In fact, I believe the most amount of campaign begins on your first day of office and how you do your work.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so.
So, Dr. Pear,
Yeah.
I would be most willing to partner with you, my friend.
Well, yeah. Listen, funny thing about that. Lastly, I've been getting a lot of calls from the UNC, so maybe Dr. Bob, you can share my number with him.
Yes, I certainly will. Yes.
For the listening audience, Justin Pierre, my phone number, WhatsApp is 647-966-4783. 647-966-4783. Our company's website is www.dpbglobal.com. www.dpbglobal.com, and our data portal, which is one of the largest data portal on Black people worldwide, is dpbglobal.net. dpbglobal.net. And lastly, we want to thank Statistics Canada for providing 40 years of data on the Black population for us. So we can now do huge computation. And, as I said, we cannot do this by ourselves. Other organization, we asking other persons to share the data with us so that we can do better computation and make better decisions. And as I said, Dr. Mohammed, you can reach out to me. We also want to thank everyone, especially the success of the UNC. I applaud them. I think that they made very, very good decisions in terms of the methodology and the market and the social media influence, the impact they had. This is very good, and I want to thank them. And I also want to thank the opposition leader of the PNM. I hope that they wish them success in their endeavors. So thank you again, everyone.
Absolutely. Dr. Pear and Dr. Mohammed, thank you so much, Dr. Mohammed. Of course, how we vote is not how we party in Trinidad. And the next time I'm in Trinidad for Carnival, Dr. Mohammed, we have to go to a fete. All right?
We should.
I'll hold you to that.
In fact, you, myself, and Dr. Pear. You and myself. Myself,
and some roti. Some roti and some stag.
Come,
I will take you for the roti.
Yeah. Very well. Some doubles, man. Doubles.
Can't forget the doubles. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for appearing on the Bubb Report this week. Viewers and listeners, this is the Bubb Report. We just had a freewheeling conversation here, very extensive conversation on the outcome of the just concluded elections in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. We are really running behind, and I do want to apologize to my last guest for being so late. I want to apologize to her, but of course, that conversation was very important. So we'll take our final break of the day and come back with the final segment of the Bubb Report. Please stand by for that.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, we can provide you with that service. We can take you every step of the way during your sorrowful moments. When that need arises, call S.A. Johnson Funeral Home at 347-777-9797. That's 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home is a Caribbean family-owned funeral home here in Brooklyn, providing funeral services, but in a dignified way. From cremation to burial to the repatriation of your loved ones, you don't have to go through the hassle, as we provide exceptional service that allows you to mourn and heal peacefully. For more information, visit our website, www.sajohnsonfuneral.org. Send us an email at sajfuneral@aol.com or call 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity.
And folks, welcome back to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. Now, of course, we will be giving you another reminder. We want to inform the national community in Grenada of the Bubb Report's inaugural Future Forge Summit that will be held at the Grenada Trade Center on Thursday, May 15th at 6 p.m. in honor of the late Leslie Pear, Lou Smith, and George Grant. Now, the core idea behind this summit is to bring together leaders, thinkers, and experts from various disciplines to engage in deep discourse about the most pressing social and global issues affecting Grenada and the Caribbean. Now, the event will serve as a platform for exploring complex ideas, fostering understanding and sparking innovative solutions to challenges facing Grenada and the Caribbean. Now, as I said, the event will be held at the Grenada Trade Center Annex, kicking off at 6 p.m. on Thursday, the 15th of May, with a reception, followed by a public lecture at 7 p.m. to be delivered by Dr. Didicus Jules, who is the Director General of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, a former education minister in Grenada, who was also instrumental in establishing the Revolutionary Era Center for Popular Education. So I do look forward to meeting all of you there. Some of you viewers and listeners who are in Grenada, of course, you're welcome to attend. You can meet me in person, and you will be entertained by the IMA Rainbow City All-Stars. There's going to be some items of drumming and culture. Given how Afrocentric I am, it will be punctuated by heavy Afrocentricity. So I do look forward to seeing a lot of you there. Now, for Labor Day 2025, the government of Grenada touted its accomplishments in advancing the interests of the Grenadian worker, including pension and regularization by monthly salary payments, the minimum wage increase, the $500 payments to nurses, as well as other victories on the labor front. Now, despite these accomplishments, the Umbrella Grenada Trades Union Council, through its president, Andre Lewis, said, quote, "This government continues to exploit the workers by violating Section 29, subsection 5 of the Employment Act," unquote. He also made it a point to highlight the government's recruitment of anti-worker personnel from the private sector to serve on statutory bodies in Grenada and to lead negotiations against workers, which goes against the government's posture of being pro-worker. Now, we are joined by Ms. Daisy Hazard, no stranger to the Bubb Report, who is the president of the Public Workers Union. And of course, she's going to talk about the legacy of the many women who served in the role of president of one of Grenada's oldest trade union movements, as well as her stewardship of the Public Workers Union. Of course, she's just recently been elected, so we'll have a conversation about those issues. Ms. Hazard, welcome to the Bubb Report. I'm not too sure if we are getting in connection with you here. It says that you're not connected, but we will take another break to see if we can touch base with Ms. Hazard, and then we'll be right back for that conversation. So please stand by for that, folks.
Tell as a commissioner of police, tell the politician, back off. You have no knowledge of the law. You have no knowledge of law enforcement. You cannot force my officers to do the wrong thing.
But that is somebody's son. That is somebody's child. That is part of a family. And I think that is the part that they are missing out.
Because E and F are apt to be used oppressively.
It's like because we don't see disabled people as sexual beings, which is ridiculous.
You mean they don't want to listen to your version of science? They have their own science. You have your science.
What we need to do is teach people to think and not what to think.
Today, it's too bad that everybody do what they want.
If I could forgive Bernard Ford, then I could forgive Bob Morris too. And today, on this day, I no more have anything in my heart for what he did.
The education system has to be very fluid and dynamic because we're living in very different and changing times.
Treating all your citizens equally, all your citizens fairly, recognizing each group, not discriminating against one or the other.
Okay, we will try that again. It looks like we have Ms. Hazard back with us. Ms. Hazard is just trying to get her connection situated here. So we will bring her on once that is done. Sister Daisy is still, yes, there you are.
Yes.
Madam President, this is the first time I'm addressing you as Madam President of the Public Workers Union. Welcome to the Bubb Report, ma'am. And we do apologize that last segment went overboard there a bit. So
thank you, Dr. Bubb. And
yes.
I was listening. It was such interesting conversation, so I knew you couldn't cut. In fact, even when you cut, it appeared that, we needed a part 2, part 3 of that conversation. Very riveting conversation indeed.
And so many lessons for the Caribbean there from that election.
Yes,
and that really speaks to accountability, because that's what elections are ultimately about. accountability and, quite frankly, holding arrogant politicians, humbling them, really.
Yes,
so, Mrs. Z, thank you so much. And first and foremost, congratulations. As this is the first time you're appearing on the Bubb Report in your capacity as president of the Public Workers Union. So congratulations are in order to you and your team.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bubb. Indeed, it's the first time I'm appearing here as president of the PWU, and I'm also general secretary to the TUC, replacing Brother Bert, and those are very big shoes indeed to fill in both respects. And so I am very pleased to be on your program today.
Absolutely. Now, coming into your presidency, the Caracal 5 issue was something, of course, that the union has been championing for. In fact, Labour Minister, the Honourable Claudia Joseph, on the firing said that it was justified and constitutional, except the Labour Commissioner disagreed with her position. And so we saw the outcome there in favour of the workers, not only in Caracal, but of course some workers on mainland Grenada as well, who were dismissed. So I suspect that's one feather in the cap that you can say you were able to accomplish in your very short presidency so far?
Absolutely. It's not something that I can back away from as president and would, because obviously under the leadership of Brother Brian Grimes, our immediate outgoing president, and myself as PRO, the executive decided to take that matter, the matter of the Caracal 5 up. And when we did that, we faced a lot of backlash politically. We faced a lot of backlash by the administration and by supporters of the administration. And immediately that the workers were fired, in the same week on the NBC Heartbeat program on the Sunday, our Attorney General and Minister for Labor said that she had reviewed the matter and that she was satisfied that the workers were properly dismissed. Of course, we always knew that they were improperly dismissed because our employment code, our labor code, part 6, which deals with discipline and termination of employment, 75 to 82, tells you how an employee can be treated with and should be treated with if you're going to dismiss them. Payment in lieu of notice, constructive dismissal. I mean, and so it's all there. And so when the Attorney General and Minister for Labor said that in 2022, and our unions faced such a forceful backlash, we knew that we could not back off of representing our workers. And we immediately took the matter to the Ministry of Labor. We persevered and pursued it throughout the last 2.5, almost 3 years. And glory to God, in 2022, April, almost on the brink of May Day, these women received their termination benefits. Leap forward to this time, and again, our Attorney General and Minister for Labor said, well, I wasn't properly informed at the time. So over the years, her stance on the situation and what she said has changed. And while we are happy that under her leadership, the Commissioner of Labor, Sparkle Grenade Courtney, was able to make those decisions, and those decisions were not interfered with. It is unfortunate and regrettable that at no point the administration, and even Senator Claudia Joseph, when she was asked this week, had the temerity and the guts to say, look, we made a mistake. It was early days, and perhaps tempers were hot, but we're happy that this matter has been resolved. She did say that on May Day, but she literally claimed it as if it was something good that government had done for workers, that they had no idea that they were the ones who terminated the workers. And so, it was a kind of dance of words and semantics, but the women have been given their benefits.
Very well. Now I know that on the heels of your presidency, on the heels of the conclusion of Mr. Grimes' presidency, there was this issue of the union dues. This letter that the cabinet secretary wrote to the union saying that they were going to withhold the dues, again, following, I believe, the elections or preparation. What was it, the elections? I don't think it was
our AGM, or annual
annual general meeting, correct. Yes. The annual general meeting, because the elections was much later. Now, I know that former President Grimes said that he wanted to get to the bottom of what transpired there. Is that something that you have looked into? Did you have any communication with the cabinet secretary, who, by the way, was a member of the union, so she knows how the union works? So again, I quite frankly was surprised by the fact that she wrote that letter. On whose instruction did she write that letter? Of course, that is something. Is that something that you've managed to investigate?
Well, I've not been able to have a conversation with the cabinet to the secretary since coming in to the PW's presidency. I have properly written off to CABSEC. In fact, it was the first letter written by myself as president to convey compliments to her, to ask for a meeting with her, and to really establish our intention and my intention as president to have relations with government that would allow us to be able to speak to each other and to dialogue socially whenever there are issues we are confronting. So no, we've not been able to have that conversation with her, but we have several letters that were penned during that time, back and forth between ourselves and the CABSEC, and also ones that we saw penned to our members and put out into the public space. And so the analysis of those letters and the conclusion is very clear. There was an attempt by government to bankrupt our union, to withhold our dues, to interfere in the process and the business of the union, to act as if government and the office of the Prime Minister and the CABSEC had jurisdiction over the union. In fact, even when it was signaled that the monies would be paid and our dues have been paid, the CABSEC, under the guise of under the umbrella of the Prime Minister's ministry, further went on to put into the public space a press release. And if one reads that press release, it literally reads as if the CABSEC was acting as an agent of the Grenada Public Workers Union, insisting that they were going to be polling our workers and workers should answer yes or no, whether or not they should pay union dues. And it was a very unfortunate moment. It was a very ridiculous moment. And our Prime Minister at the time was at heads of government in Barbados. And I think Prime Minister and his administration and all of Grenada got to understand that we do not perform governance in a vacuum, that governance is performed not just within the confines of the state of Grenada, but also through our regional mechanisms. And at that meeting where he was at heads of government, the president of the Caribbean Congress of Labor was there. The president of the Grenada Trades Union Council, Brother Andre Lewis, was there at those meetings. And it is at that meeting that matter was quietly resolved through the office of the Prime Minister of Grenada. And I'll tell you something, Dr. Bubb, and Grenada, you should know that this situation almost precipitated protests across the OECS and Caribbean region among our affiliates for our dues, for Grenada's Public Workers Union dues. And so that was an incident that was averted, and perhaps an incident that would have really embarrassed the government of Grenada if across the region our affiliate unions would have been protesting for Grenada Public Workers Union dues, for government to give it up, because it was literally theft.
Now let's talk about your agenda moving forward. Of course, the issue of the regularization, I believe, for public servants remains the pressing issue there, with respect to, of course, the whole pension that was just implemented and what that means for workers who are supposed to be regularized. I suspect that will be one of your agenda items. But I know that following your election, you went on this, I suppose, galvanizing tour of meeting your members and things like that. So let us talk about your agenda, one in respect of those two pressing structural issues, big picture, as well as getting membership buy-in to give the union the legitimacy to continue to advocate on their behalf.
Absolutely. I have no qualms at all. I have no disquiet about whether or not I have my members' buy-in. We saw in 2023-24 that we had some members who were so politically aligned, who literally said to the union, don't ask government for increases for members. And I'm not one who's going to shy away from that and pretend that it had not happened. That was not a majority of our members. And I am certain that in my presidency, I may confront that. And I'm prepared to deal with that. But in general, I do have the support and the buy-in of my membership as president. Also, I have made it my business, as you have said, to be on the ground since I've come in as president, not just working at the desk, but also going out there to meet workers. My boots are on the ground. And the aspect of regularization, we have heard from the government in Parliament. We've heard the Prime Minister indicate that there is regularization happening. DP has spoken to it. But what government is speaking about as regularization, I have described in the public space as semantics. Because regularization, proper regularization within the public service means that a person has a letter of definitive appointment by the PSC, which is the machinery and the arm of the state that is supposed to appoint public sector employees. And so when government speaks about regularization, it is doing, not establishing workers, not regularizing them properly, but upgrading salaries and issuing them new contracts. And even now, they have not quite determined as a policy mechanism, how are we going to give these workers tenure? How are we going to give these workers security outside of a contractual arrangement that they can feel satisfied and some sense of ease as a worker, that my job is not something that can be easily taken away from me? And so when government speaks of regularization, it is a policy, sort of a loose policy, that the politician and the administration, in my opinion, has created to satisfy speaking in the public space. But it is not something that is satisfying the workers or the union for all of the reasons that I've just described. And when we speak to workers on the ground, they are very, very, very concerned. They are very hurt. They are in pain. And a lot of workers describe it as feeling as if their last hope has been taken away from them, because so much hope was promised in terms of regularizing everyone by the stroke of a pen. And even if the administration comes into office and begins to understand, look, we can't do that for so many reasons in the way that we have promised, I believe that they should not just try to indicate to the nation, we are regularizing everyone. And the public believes that there is something that is happening for public sector employees that's not happening. While workers know in their pocket, in their dollars and cents, in the letters that are in front of them or not in front of them, that they are not truly regularized and can benefit from a 1958 pension.
But except that the administration would say, of course, the administration had a meeting at the Trade Center, I believe, where the workers assembled. I'm not too sure if they were summoned there, if that was part of the mandate to go there. But the workers assembled, and some of the workers, in respect of this new pension, and of course, the government would say that they are engaging in a process of incrementalism here that says, okay, yes, these workers who are not regularized, they were not entitled to a pension. They were not entitled to retirement benefits. They were not entitled to the ability, if they wanted to leave the public service, with some sort of benefits from the public service. The government would say then that perhaps you are being unreasonable in wanting to suggest regularization with the stroke of, although they did say that in the campaign, regularization with the stroke of a pen, but that it has to be incrementalist, or unless it will for risking bankrupting the economy of the country.
Well, anything that government does, government has to be prudent, and union understands that as well, because government has to operate within a holistic function, looking out for all of the aspects of the society that they have to. And I say that as government, giving them a plug where government really never gives the union a plug. However, even if you have to do regularization in phases, which we would have to do properly, it must be regularization, as I said before, that is meaningful to workers. And yes, there was a meeting at the Trade Center that workers' contract employees were summoned to, were called to. And when they meet me now and they ask the questions of the union about the said pension reform, I have to say to them very candidly, I cannot answer you. You will have to go back to the DPA, and you will have to go back to the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister of Grenada, to ask those questions again and to have your issues and your concerns clarified, because government never really properly sat with the union to clarify those said issues. And so we really cannot provide the answers for employees that government should be providing. Come January 30th, as of January 30th, 31st of this year, workers did see that 3% deductions were taken from their salaries for their pension packages. In some cases, even established workers who should benefit from under 1958 saw their salaries docked as well for the pension reform package. But how do you explain to a worker satisfactorily who has been laboring in the field and they've been there 20 years and they are not properly employed, but the labor code of Grenada would say to them, section 29.5, that if you've been doing this job, you've been working as a nurse, a doctor, a cleaner, a pharmacist, a clerk typist, that's a job that government needs, that government can never do without. And you've been there. How can someone come forward and say to you in 2025, you will be snapped up in a pension reform and you do not qualify for 1958? And so people are feeling hurt. People are feeling aggrieved. And that is why we as union, the Grenada Public Workers Union, did appeal repeatedly to government to sit with the union. Let us trash this thing out. Let us take on board the ideas that the union has, because we do have ideas. We sit with our members, we speak with them, so that we can create a framework that will provide more answers than questions. And what government has done in the terms of the pension reform, while it has been heralded as, I heard Senator the Honorable Claudette Joseph at May Day, heralded it as the single greatest thing that has been done for labor in Grenada since paying pensions 1958. It is creating chaos. It is hurting people. There's no regulations that has been developed around pension reform. Workers do not know where their monies are going. And DPA told us in a meeting on Wednesday that while a board is being set up, they will manage the pension reform money. But workers are still saying, why is my money being taken out of the consolidated fund? As president of the GUT, Comrade Jude said on May Day, we don't want teachers' money, pension, to come out of the consolidated fund. And it is the same thing that workers across the public sector and members of my union are saying, why are you telling me that you're doing something wonderful for me, yet you're taking it out of the safety of the consolidated fund? You plan to put it into the hands of a board of directors that does not yet exist. And when you look at the composition of the board, unions have only one representative. How can it be fair or reasonable that those monies belong to public sector employees, from my members, Grenada Public Workers Union, to members of the RGPF, to statutory bodies, to members of the prisons, and employees of the GUT, and the people that government has decided in their own deliberate wisdom and judgment that should manage that fund going forward, are people who really are not members, are not vested as a union representative would be. And why has government decided that when in the creation of that fund and in the creation of that board, only one representative from the entirety of the public sector unions should be on that board? And workers are not happy about it. They are very, very, very concerned. And we describe it as contained chaos.
What are some other agenda items that would inform your presidency?
Well, Dr. Bubb, as you know, the world is in a crisis. We are seeing a world that is in flux. There is so much instability. And the harbingers are saying to us that we have to prepare for uncertainty and that we have to prepare for some tough times ahead, where inflation in our own across the world may rise, and in our own country as well. So one of my prerogatives going forward would be to secure benefits for my members, meaningfully so, and increases that can help to mitigate and absorb some of those shocks. And government has to also plan for that in thinking ahead and taking the necessary actions now to cut discretionary spending. We are still seeing government spending on things that are not necessary, critically important, as if the world is not changing, as if we are not all looking at the harbingers that we are looking at. And so the union, that's one of my prerogatives as president, to ensure that we can bring back to workers in the next negotiating cycle, not just a little increase, but a living wage that they can be comfortable with, more than a living wage. Yeah.
Very well. Of course, Ms. Hazard, and that's not something that I intended to raise at all, but it's only of public interest because of how it played out, and that has to do with your worthy opponent. I believe Mr. Fimber Charles is his name. Yes. Who competed with you. I understand there was a bit of a dust-up with the both of you. Have you been able to mend fences with the gentleman?
I have never broken any collegial relationships or friendship with the gentleman. So I really have nothing to mend. However, I do value my physical safety and security. I'm a woman, I'm petite, and so I take measures to ensure that I'm safeguarded. As you look across the world, just there in Trinidad, we see Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar coming into her prime ministership. Congratulations to her. There are 3 women at the helm of Trinidad's governance right now. And we look across the world, we look in Barbados, and we see women coming to the forefront of leadership. And I believe that the men among us ought to support and celebrate that. And even if a man competes with a woman and she emerges ahead of you, one, I believe a man ought to be able to understand in 2025 that a woman is your equal. A woman is your equal in terms of leadership. A woman is your equal in terms of the roles and the places where she can stand head and shoulders in the world. The Bible tells us a lot of things about the headship of a home. But when it comes to organizations and businesses, the way that women have been educating and empowering themselves, I do not believe that any man should believe that somehow there is an inherent right or there is an inherent headship that he should have over such a woman. And I also believe that men should, and in general, we see that men do, men should be able to celebrate the successes of their female counterparts. And I've not seen that from my colleague. I have seen a lot of public ridiculing, a lot of public shaming of me. I've seen a lot of hurtful and very negative and untruthful things said about me. But I'm not holding on to that because I am leader for everybody, including those persons who may not be so happy that I am president. I'm leader of the entire union. And so I extend love and I extend good relations to everyone, including the brother. Yes.
Do you think, though, that's going to affect the unity of the union? I'm corrected here. It's Thomas, not Charles. I said Charles. My apologies to the gentleman. How are you going to ensure that? And of course, Mr. Thomas makes no bones about his support for the current administration. He's very politically aligned to the current administration, judging by his Facebook posts. But how are you going to foster a sense of unity and galvanizing, especially in the context of these major issues that you have to deal with as president?
So let me stick 2 points here quickly. One, I'm not aligned to any government or any political party. As a public sector, as a public servant, and as a patriotic Grenadian, any government that our people return in any elections to serve our country as the administration, they have my support 100%. So I support the NDC administration as a government in Grenada today 100%. However, as the president of the Grenada Public Workers Union, I make no bones that my fealty, my loyalty, and my first call of business is to my members, because that is where I've taken an oath of office. So where I need to praise government, where government has done well, I will do so and have done so. And where I need to hold government's hand to the fire, I will certainly do that because that is my mandate. And if any public servant believes that it is okay and responsible for them to come out into the public space and swear fealty to a political party and an administration which obviously is made up of the political party that our citizens has returned, I would want them to consult the SRNO, because they can be reprimanded and disciplined for that, even up to losing their jobs, because the SRNO cautions us, public servants, not to do so. And within the last 2.5 years of the NDC administration being in government, the cabinet secretary, Ms. Carvelet, and the PSC has repeatedly, at least 3-4 times to my knowledge, sent out correspondence to members, to public sector employees, cautioning them to not show or display political fealty. Now, in terms of how am I going to lead my membership, as everyone who knows me and my members will tell you, I'm about love. I love my members. I love people. I love the human spirit. This is why I've stepped forward to lead in a situation where I cannot get rich. I am not receiving a salary. I'm focused on the job of the union, on being president for everyone. On May Day, the gentleman was at May Day celebrations. I was there as president, and there was no issue whatsoever. And on my part going forward, there certainly will never be any issue, because my focus is about uniting my members, galvanizing and upticking benefits for them, and that's everyone. And so I do not anticipate that there should be a problem at all.
Absolutely. Well, we will be watching this space to see how that will unfold. But we do have a viewer comment that we want to get to, and then of course we'll go over to you for some closing comments, because we are way over time here, and I'm way past my lunchtime. But
I have breakfast from church.
You as well, Mrs. Adam Shaw.
Yes.
Margaret Francis saying, while your commitment to fighting for workers are commendable, I would like to know what are your plans for holding workers accountable for giving a fair day's work for a fair day's pay, for promoting a good work ethic, for getting your workers to treat the public who pay your workers' salary with dignity and respect. What are your plans to bring your members up to speed through in-service and other forms of training? Or is it going to be the same old, same old?
Okay. Thank you, Miss Margaret Francis. And I certainly hope that it will not be the same old, same old. And I believe it will not be, because we have seen even up to last month that the PSC and the DPA, responsibly so, has been training workers, especially persons who have been placed into middle management positions, into training workers so that they can perform their roles as managers. Mm-hmm. And the productivity of the public sector, the productivity of employees is not the mandate of unions. If you go and you look at the International Labour Organization, their mandate is clear, and we unions take our mandate from there. I do not hold the functions of management in my hand at the union. The employer does. I do not select managers. I do not select middle managers. I do not select line managers. Unions do not do that. And so the arm that has to be properly held accountable for discipline, for productivity, for how a worker conducts itself, is the employer. And in Grenada, within the last 2.5 years, we have been trying to change the science and to change the dialogue to suit our own self-serving needs. My union does not train employees to perform their functions. That's not our role. However, as I've said on May Day, and I also said it at the DPA, and I've said it to members, we hold members accountable. If I have to represent members, if I have to represent you, it is better for me if you are a professional, productive member of society. It burdens me when I hear or see the public saying all the time, you call the ministry and there's no one answering the telephone. Now, in 2025, with all the technologies that we have at our disposal, the question should be asked to government, why is nothing answering the phone when you call? The question should be asked to the employer. Why haven't you onboarded all of those arms of technology that can ensure that when someone calls a government ministry, there is a response? That's a question for the government, not for the union. However, for the union, for me as president, I urge my workers to be professional. We require that of you. We require you to give to the employer his just dues. If you want a fair day's pay and you want the union to go out and me as president to go out on a limb and demand it from government, I must be able to say my workers are being very, very productive. And so we are very heartened that the DPA has also announced a new system of performance management within the public sector. We have said to the DPA, however you need the union to assist with that. However, you need us to help in training and educating members. The union will do that. And so you will see VPW under my leadership doing periodic training and mentorship of our workers. And know this as well, Miss Margaret, and the public, the union disciplines workers because workers are not always right. And we know that. We do discipline workers.
Very well. We have another comment here. Let's see here. Where is it? I'll pull it up. A lot of comments are coming in here. Onesso says that Jules Bartholomew said this administration is more forthcoming than the last administration. Do you share his views?
I cannot speak for Brother Jude Bartholomew, but I can speak about our own experiences. We discussed this morning already the pension reform, where government really did not take on board the opinion of union or allowed us to speak properly to the pension reform. We look at where doctors and nurses receive some additional allowances. That was done outside the umbrella of the union. And the law is very clear that no employer should attempt to do anything with workers regarding workers behind the back of the agent, their bargaining agent, which is a union. And so we see on the surface of it that there is this cosmetic approach. And government is good at messaging. I can give them their due. They're very good at messaging and putting their messages out there in the public. And so on the face of it, government would say, we are very forthcoming with unions. We are providing information, not so. For instance, we have been asking this administration in writing and verbally for the last year and a half, since they have indicated that they are regularizing workers, to provide us with numbers, provide us with names, provide us with ministries. To date, my union does not have that. At my meeting with the DPA last week, I asked for it and I was promised it. I will write for it because I'm not going to take the chance that somebody forgets. I do believe P.S. Hilaire and her team, when they indicated, yes, we are going to provide you with that information. But what we have seen is a government that is not speaking to unions on the table, in the bargaining room. They are speaking in the public space. And so last year, even at May Day, Senator the Honorable Claudia Joseph said, come, let us speak, come, let us reason. But in the last year, even the GUT has had to admit that kind of a dialogue that they would like to have is not happening. It's not happening at all. And I really do hope that going forward, government will do what it says it is doing and not just play words and put it out there in the public space, but in the background, it's something else happening altogether.
Ms. Hazard, any other final comments from you as we end the program today? Of course, again, congratulations. The Bubb Report, we always follow labor issues because I myself am a member of a trade union here in the United States. We are in the fight as a member of the association, the American Association of University Professors. We are in the fight here. I'm a shop steward at my institution. And, trade unionism is in my DNA. So I do understand the important work of trade unionism, starting with my membership in the Technical and Allied Workers Union back in Grenada. So trade unionism does play an important role in protecting and advancing workers' rights. So I think that must be said, that must be said against the backdrop of the just concluded Labor Day. So over to you for some closing comments.
So what I would like to assure my members, we see government making some effort because we've seen workers, as I've said, not regularized properly under the establishment, but quite a number of workers have received increases in salaries. Their grades and scales have been adjusted. And so we have to commend government for trying because they have inherited a huge problem. It is a historical problem. And we are aware that it's not, you can't just do it at the stroke of a pen, which we have always said to government. And so I do want to commend government for the efforts that they have been making. However, government, we would like you to speak to us some more. We would like you to take care of those sick buildings. We would like the PSC to understand that you cannot just demand that all workers should report to sick buildings to work because they are being made sick when technology and the trend of work since COVID has been onboarding remote and blended working. I want to say to you workers that it is not my intention as your president to be at loggerheads with government. I want to have that relationship with government, that kind of discourse with government where we can return to you the maximum benefits. However, whenever I do need to stand firmly as your president, I will do so. I will do so. And so I just want to ask you members to keep on encouraging me, keep on giving me your support. When I get your messages, when I get your calls, when I get your advice, it really, really gives me courage for the journey. And together, I know that within the next 2 years, as your president and you as my members, we are going to take our union higher, together, stronger. Thank you.
Ms. Daisy Hazard, a happy Sunday to you and congratulations again on becoming, I hope that you will continue to be accessible.
I am. Thank you to the public for your comments as well.
Yes, absolutely. Viewers and listeners, that's Ms. Daisy Hazard, of course, is the newly elected president of the Grenada Public Workers Union, articulating what her agenda would look like as the incoming president, and also speaking to some of the issues affecting her union on the labor front. So we're grateful that she was able to give us an update on those pressing matters. Of course, in the past, We've also had the Minister of Labor here to discuss government's own position on these issues. So we thank Ms. Hazard, and of course, before Ms. Hazard, of course, Mr. Grimes, who was the president of the Public Workers Union, the immediate past president of the union. We thank all of them for their continued appearance on the Bubb Report. And folks, as we end the program today, of course, I just want to do a quick roll call. Tell us where you're watching the Bubb Report from so that we can shout you out. But as we go to break, again, I just want to remind folks of the event that the Bubb Report is an inaugural event that the Bubb Report will be having in Grenada on the 15th of May. The 15th of May this month, which really, if you think about it, it's honestly next week already. May is going so fast. At the Grenada Trade Center. And of course, this has been held on the occasion of the 5th anniversary of the Bubb Report in honor of Leslie Pear, Lou Smith, and George Grant. Now, the idea behind this summit is to bring together leaders, thinkers, and experts from various disciplines to engage in deep discussions about the most pressing social and global issues affecting Grenada and the Caribbean. Now, this event, we hope, will serve as a platform for exploring complex ideas, fostering understanding, and sparking innovative solutions to challenges facing humanity. Now, the event, as I said, will be held at the Grenada Trade Center Annex, the Grenada Trade Center Annex down there in Monroe's Grand Dance. It will kick off at 6 p.m. It will kick off at 6 p.m. with a reception followed by a public lecture to be delivered by Dr. Didicus Jules. Dr. Didicus Jules, again, who served as one of the main players in the education reform during the People's Revolutionary Government. There would be some items of culture by the Rainbow City All-Stars. That's the IMA Rainbow City All-Stars. And also some drumming and some singing. And it's going to be a really nice event. And really what we want to do for this is to just thank everyone who has been a part of making this program possible over the last 5 years. I really can't believe that it's already 5 years that the Bubb Report has been an item. Honestly, when I started this following the passing of the late, great George Grant, I didn't think that it was going to be this long-term and sustainable project. It honestly was meant to carry on George Grant's legacy in the interim until such time that someone was able to fill that void. But I'm certainly grateful that I'm able to fill very, very big shoes. And of course, the people behind my honoring Leslie Pear, Lou Smith, and George Grant, they all contributed to being the person that I am today in the field of journalism. Of course, I don't do journalism full-time. I'm a professor now, but certainly some of those lessons from my early days working with Leslie Pear and Lou Smith in particular contributed a lot to what I'm able to do now and what I'm able to impart to a new generation of students. So let's see who is joining us here. We have Ingrid. Ingrid is joining us from Queens, New York. We have Sue Patrice. Hello, Sue. Welcome. The mind is working in Gaborone, Botswana while I listen. Tour planning. Sue, I suspect you're in Botswana now. Sue Patrice is all over the place. I can't keep up. Margaret, I can't keep up with your high school friend, Sue. There, Hamilton, New Jersey. Susan Thomas is watching or listening from Hamilton, New Jersey. Joan Henry is in Grenada. Of course, Mr. Brand Grimes saying, enjoying the program today. Hats off. Dr. Bubb, hats off to you, Mr. Grimes. Seattle, Washington State. That's Mr. Hyacinth Roberts is, of course, Seattle, Washington State is 3 hours behind Eastern Time. So it's still early there in Seattle. Seattle is very beautiful, but very rainy, right, Mr. Roberts? It's good to have you here, sir. Let's see who else is joining us. Let's see who else is here. Well, I know Margaret is in New York as always. And of course, Dr. Jocelyn Peters is in Simons. I think it's spelled Simon, but it's pronounced Simons, right? In St. Andrews. Then we have Brenda Lee, who is joining us again from Grenada. She's saying, George, Mr. Grant will be proud of you. He absolutely will be. And Ernesto is joining us from New York. And Mr. Martin Felix is joining us from Brooklyn, but he's currently listening from Hartford, Connecticut. And of course, Mr. Brian Grimes is saying that he's joining us from the South Side. South Side, no North Side. Is that what that lady Andy Williams's sidekick? I guess is that what she says? South Side, no North Side, or something like that. So, folks, again, thank you so much for viewing the Bubb Report, and I will be seeing you in Grenada. I should be heading down to Grenada very soon. So I'll see a lot of you on the ground in Grenada as I prepare for this important summit that we're having on the occasion of our 5th anniversary. So, folks, on behalf of the producers of the Bubb Report, I'm your humble host, Dr. Kellen Bubb, wishing everyone a pleasant week ahead, and we'll see you next week for another installment of the Bubb Report. Take care now. Bye-bye. Hi, everyone. Thanks for checking out the Bubb Report's social media pages. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch our weekly live show, follow our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can catch repeat episodes on Wednesdays at 4 and 5 p.m. respectively on CRFM Radio and GBN TV in Grenada. We are also viewed on Sundays at 8 p.m. on WPG 10 throughout the Caribbean. Thanks for watching.